It's me.
I'm recording that for later use.
Good gift. It's pretty decent. Pretty dope.
Yeah.
Not the worst.
For everything else that was terrible, at least the games were good.
Yeah, this is gonna be a while. We're just gonna go. We're gonna go through like the year in chronological order, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've played this. It was my first time playing Dragon Quest. It's the re-release that came out on the 3DS that I played on the 3DS. And I didn't actually like it all that much. I'm a huge fan of the Dragon Quest series. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Dragon Quest series. But whether it was because I was trying to play it after having played the Switch for a little bit, and then I was like going back to the 3DS, or if it's because like Level 5 developed it instead of like the usual kind of Dream Team thing, it really didn't click with me. And I think I only made it about 3/4 of the way through before I decided, yeah, I'm just gonna pack the 3DS up and call it a day. Yeah, because it was sort of like it felt like off-brand Dragon Quest. Like all the music was there and all of the, like the art design was there, but there's something that like about the quest flow and about the structure of the world that Dragon Quest has iterated on for like 30 years that just didn't kind of feel right to me. So
interesting.
Mm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And part of that as well is I think it like Level 5 I have a bit of a rocky history with. I tried to play Rogue Galaxy for the first time earlier in the year, and just the structure of like game cutscene, and nothing of it was like really well written. For me, like Dragon Quest has always been about a really sparse narrative that like kind of pulls you in and like sets you loose on some dungeons, and then like it gets more involved as it goes along, kind of thing, as opposed to front loading the introduction to the characters and that kind of stuff. A little bit more classic style, but
literally zero experience with any. I played Dragon Quest Joker. And that's it.
The spin-off. Yeah, I would say
Pokemon
get
game.
Dragon Quest 6 because that's the chief. Mm. Oh yeah, Cody.
Right.
That was an amazing game. I had no qualms about that one. Yeah. Yeah, they do. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's interesting for me because I loved Gravity Rush 1, but something about 2 just didn't pull me in. It was, I don't know. I think honestly, I think it had more to do with the timing of it and just like where my life was. I was just kind of busy, and it wasn't exactly the kind of game I was looking for, I think. But I don't know. Something about it just, I dropped it pretty quick, and then Jess is the only one who's actually gone through the whole game.
Yeah, it has the same thing as Gravity Rush 1, where it starts off as kind of like a slow start, and the structure of Gravity Rush has always been it's like a storytelling thing. It's called picaresque storytelling, but essentially it's not like one narrative. It's a bunch of like discrete little stories, and then they sort of just like all end up smashing into each other right at the end. So it starts off with just like a bunch of like vignettes, and it's been a long time since the previous game, and there's nothing that's like carried over one to one. So it sort of just like throws you into the deep end of this new city. It's open world, so you're allowed to kind of do whatever you want. There's not like, you know, that kind of pushing structure. So yeah, I can agree that it started off a little bit slow. Why I really like the game is it keeps unfolding for me. Like you know, there's you start off in the main hub, and it's like an all new city, and then you end up going to the fully recreated city up from the first game, Hexville. But you're not just there, like, you know, there's some plot reasons why it's been a kind of long time since the first game, and you have these new movement modes. One is Jupiter, where you're essentially really heavy, and one is Luna, which is really great because it essentially allows you to do the Just Cause 2 gliding stuff, where you can essentially like you plan these super long jumps, and you can kind of like steer the jumps, so it feels actually a lot smoother than the normal Gravity style, and I used it for traversal quite a lot, and it's really great because you can get this whole thing, you know, where you do a super power jump off the side of a building and like boost through and like weave through buildings all the way that, like, you know, through the dense town, and end up, you know, kicking an enemy in the head on the other side of it or whatever. But it was just really fun, and all three movement styles felt like they could have their own game built around them. So they were really fun to experiment with. And then, you know, so all that was really great. And then the story stuff, I think they probably knew that this was going to be their only game. Like, they're not going to be a Gravity Rush 3, or if it is, it's not going to be for a long, long, long time. So they kind of, like, it feels like two games, like, because you finish Gravity Rush 2, and there's like the kind of the climax for those story beats. And then in the post game, it introduces like everything else you could think of and wraps all of that up too, sort of like it's a Gravity Rush 3 that's also in there. Which it was just like kind of really fun to finish and then have some of the biggest bosses after the credits kind of thing.
Yeah. It's like so it's interesting that you talk about all the gameplay stuff, because I think that's why I didn't like it very much at the beginning. All the story stuff, like the four new characters that they introduce, the two brothers, and then the lady captain, and like that girl, like I really liked all four of those new characters. I could definitely see like this is the archetype they're starting in, and I can imagine that they'll end up.
Crazy. It gets crazy, but yeah.
But so maybe I will go back to it. Like, this trailer that we're watching makes it look pretty dope too. The gameplay stuff, I think, at the beginning, the gameplay stuff is kind of limited. So maybe
when I say unfolding too, like, there's a full like randomly generated dungeon element to it, where you can essentially risk reward by keep going deeper and fighting bosses and getting better like amulets, and there's like this whole kind of like a Persona thing. But like, it's kind of ancillary, but it's just like, wow, they put a lot of time and effort into this thing. And it's like that for like all the mini games are like have their own little dedicated kind of quirks, which, you know, it feels kind of fun to have the side quests be unique stuff, kind of, as opposed to picking up 1,000 treasure chests in Assassin's Creed 4 or something.
You're right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Oh, I think it's called that Hulk Ultimate Destruction or something. Yeah. Oh, Prototype. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Tales of Berseria. It's I don't want to talk about it too much. It's a Tales game. Tales games are probably one of my favorite franchises. Just got some nostalgic issues. Issues. So I can't be too objective of the game. But it is a Japanese ass JRPG. The story is fun. Like, it's interesting. You're like the villain, which is interesting. Like, there are a lot of references. So this is kind of like a prequel. It's 1,000 years before another game that came out, Tales of Zestiria. So you're like the villain that they talk about. They're like the first Lord of Chaos, blah blah blah. You're that person, but it gives you like some sympathetic reasons why you would be this person and why you did the things that they talk about in that other game.
So are you a villain, or are you like a hero villain where, oh, you're the villain now, but it just means that you wear more black and doing the same hero stuff? Or are you actually like dominating stuff and enslaving people? Or mm-hmm.
I don't think I can hear anybody. No. You two can hear each other. I'm going to try leaving and coming back. Figured it out.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right.
I played Tales of Fantasia. That was a fun time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Long ass game. But
That's not a lot at all.
So I'm going to pause right there. Timestamp 17 p.m. We'll edit this out after when we upload to YouTube. I don't think you're coming through the stream at all. Your audio, Evan.
Damn it.
I took a quick peek at our
There
chat.
I go. Yeah, I had my mic muted. Either way,
Figured it out. All right.
so we're good. So yeah, combat was great in this game. Story was great in this game.
Timestamp.
Thanks, Ryan. Sorry, I wasn't looking at the chat. We're good though. Combat was great. Reminded me of Tales of Grace's F. The character in this game was different from any JRPG protagonist that I've ever seen. She didn't give a shit about anybody. It was awesome. It was probably the most fun I've had in a Tales game in maybe about 3 to 4 years, which I appreciated.
So how much of it did you play, Andrew? More than Evan, or?
Yeah, I'm pretty much done.
Okay, so I have like kind of a loaded question. Is the writing good or just JRPG good? If
It's
you
not
understand
good.
what I mean by
Oh,
No,
yeah,
writing
yeah.
is not good. It's definitely anime-ish, like cliche anime-ish.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's that style.
Yeah,
That definitely appeals to like the fans of the genre.
Mhm.
But no, I most certainly would not say, like, if you don't already know if you'll like it, you won't like it.
Okay.
I definitely like feel like I've gotten to the point where I don't like JRPG stories, but this one surprised me in a lot of ways that was unexpected, especially early on. But I do agree with Andrew in pretty much every point.
Okay.
Speaking of unexpected,
Let's
Fire Emblem Heroes,
So this game, whoops,
February 2nd.
Oh,
Did not play this game for very long. So it's funny, at the office when this game came out, there was a joke, like people kept doing that sort of exploit where you installed the game and you did the tutorial, you got 20 orbs, and so you use orbs to pull new heroes, but if you didn't hook up your Nintendo account, it didn't save, so if you got bad heroes, you could just delete, reinstall, and try again.
Like
So
re-rolling to get a shiny Charmander at the start
like
of
re-rolling
Pokemon or
to
something. Yeah.
Exactly. It's exactly the same thing. And people were doing that. I did that for like 3 days to try and get Lynn, a 5-star Lynn, because she's my favorite Fire Emblem character.
Oh yeah.
Couldn't. Deleted this game for so long, and then I got back onto it a couple months ago, and I play it like every day. It's great.
Yeah, this game, like, it surprised me in many ways, where I feel like, honestly, I want to say it's the most fun I've had with Fire Emblem combat in a long time, where it reduces the combat to these really interesting 4v4 situations where people can either move like 2, 3, or 4 spaces, right? Or 1, 2, or 3 spaces. Sorry, not 2. So it just creates these like really interesting puzzles that I enjoy.
They're all single screen battles, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just super impressed with it. I didn't think I would be.
It's definitely more of a puzzle game than it is like a tactics game. Like they're like this with the special events where like the developers will have, so a lot of the maps are like randomly generated in that they have a couple maps and then it's kind of random what units show up for certain things. But there's like the story levels and like the special event levels that are like specifically designed, and they're more like puzzles, like because the enemies will have like crazy high stats, so it's more like, okay, what type of units should I be using to beat these guys in? But it's also just fun to gamble. To make pulls, even though you can get getting 3 stars is the worst, and I don't need another Bartray, whatever his name is. He sucks. But like when you pull that good 5-star that you're looking for, it's like,
It does feel good, but like if I had one complaint about this game is that I've started kind of like, I have a team that's good, and right now like I'm just not replacing that team whatsoever. I have like what was it's the Blazing Roy or something, or the
Brave Roy.
Brave. So I have a Brave Roy, a Brave Lynn, a Reinhardt, and an Olivia, right? And it's just kind of like, that's a team. It just kind of wins everything, and I'm just kind of waiting for another good character to come out. So all the roles that I make, it's just like, okay, it'd be cool if I had like an axe dancer or something, but I don't really care.
I want that. Yeah. that Axazura. Yeah. It's just genuinely surprising for me. Yeah. Mobile games this year in particular have been
mobile games
very
forever.
Surprising.
Oh, sorry. Mobile games forever. Sorry, I thought you were going to go somewhere else with that. For me, mobile games have been super disappointing, and definitely Fire Emblem Heroes. It
sounds a bit like FIFA Ultimate Team, except for with Fire Emblem characters.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Way to say it.
It's good, and it's not a great game in the sense that I think like this is something people need to play 10 years from now. But I've had enough fun where I genuinely was like, is this my game of the year?
Really? Really?
That's how much fun I've been having.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We've also created like it's been a huge talking point at the office. Just like we have a bunch of chats in Slack, and the Fire Emblem Heroes one is always like number 2 or 3. Or it's in the top 10 at least in terms of most active chats of just people being like, oh, a new hero came out. What are you gonna like? What skills are you gonna give them? How can we make this character good? Are they S tier? Are they F tier? It doesn't like. It's created an interesting amount of I guess like coffee or water cooler talk or whatever.
Yeah,
which is interesting. Eugene, what's up?
Okay. Next, also still in February. Neo.
So, Neo. So this was a game that was very interesting to me because when it came out, and Team Ninja. I love Team Ninja. Ninja Gaiden has always been a big game that I've always enjoyed. But so Neo is basically Team Ninja's attempt at making a Dark Souls game, right? And it did a good job. Like it was the kind of game where when I started playing it, I thought this is my game of the year. I love this game. And then 5, 6, 7 hours in, I kind of figured out the combat, and I was like, oh, maybe this game is bad. Not bad, but just like skippable, right? Like it's not.
For me, I was interested in playing it, but like, because for that same thing where like the combat and the bosses all look very interesting. But then I heard about like a little bit how the level structure, and it's not like it's a level structure. It's literally you go in and there's a level, and then you finish that level and you leave. And kind of like all my interest in it just died right there because like I don't, Dark Souls games, I really love them all, but the combat is only like a third of that or half of that, whereas the environment and like, exploring it all, that's like so much of the value I get out of those games kind of thing, as opposed to just a series of discrete levels.
And that's not even getting into like the flaws with the combat, where like, so there's a stamina system that you and the enemies have. So essentially the best way to kill any enemy is just to reduce their stamina, either by forcing them to block and hitting them with like a very large amount of small stamina costing attacks, or like just kind of blocking properly and hit. Like there's also this mechanic in the game where there's the bloodstains in Dark Souls, right? So in this, there's bloodstains as well, but instead it's not just a bloodstain where it's like somebody died here and you get to see how they die. Somebody died here and you get to fight their soul, and if you kill them, they drop the gear that they had, right? So not all the gear, just like one piece of gear.
But it's just like a combination of the PvP invasion and the bloodstains.
Yeah, it's true. But the problem is that this player is run by an AI. So like basically any of them you could kind of beat pretty easily, unless like they randomly did something crazy that killed you. So most of the time it'd be like, oh, I couldn't beat that boss, so I just kind of went around and farmed bloodstains until I got like really good gear, because at least during launch there was a significant amount of times where it's just like, oh, I'm level say 30, and like some level 40 guy just happened to die in this level. I'm just gonna get his gear, right? Like I'll just farm him and then I go and beat the boss, right? And it was pretty easy to beat those ghosts, so it gave like a really easy way out for any time. I don't know how it is now, but like it was a game that I thought was so good, and then I kind of figured it out, and it was like, oh, this game is actually very shallow in the end. But it's still played a lot, and they've added a lot of weapon types, and it launched on PC, and apparently people love it. So maybe there's something I'm missing, but I definitely expected a little bit more from this. Moving on to the game that I was actually probably most excited about this year, which might surprise you guys. For Honor. Yeah, so this game was I thought this game was going to be shit, right? And it turned out being shit like 6 months after launch. I'm not going to lie, but I played the beta with one of the other D-Pals, Gray, and we both loved it. Like it was a game that when you beat some, like the 1v1 combat was near perfect in terms of it was exactly what you wanted in terms of if you outplayed them, you beat them, and if they outplayed you, they beat you, right? And the amount of mechanics that went into this, it's a kind of game that I've been wanting for a while, where it's just like a very, very technical, I guess, like martial arts fighter, right? And it nailed most of that. The problem is that this game fell very, very hard to Ubisoft, just DLC bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, any of the new heroes that came out were super overpowered in compared to the other ones. Any of the other, like, blah, 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 blah. But when this game launched, there were a couple characters that were definitely overpowered. But when you got in a 1v1 fight and you were, like, equally matched and you beat them, it was one of, if not the best feelings I had this entire year. And I loved it. I don't even, let me just double check how many hours I have in this game.
Did you play Absolver at all? Because that looks kind of like a similar jam.
So I have about 90 hours in For Honor.
Oh wow!
Right, I love this game. It was super awesome, and I did play Absolver. I don't have it on the list, but I'll just like talk about my issues kind of with Absolver. Is that
we can get to that when we get to it, but
I don't have it on the list. Sorry, because I didn't really like. It's just Absolver and For Honor were very similar, but Absolver was very like the defender, the attacker had to beat the defender type thing, and while in For Honor the defender had to beat the attacker. Like it was a very, I guess I don't really know how to explain this perfectly, but they're very different games for very, very minute reasons. And For Honor I feel like definitely executed a little bit better, and Absolver, you know, it lasted for a while but it died off very quickly. And Absolver has a lot of things that I really loved, especially kind of like the God Hand aspect of building your own combo, which For Honor didn't have. Eugene's attacking my hand if you can't see. This sucks. He's like biting and scratching it. Okay, that's getting out of there. All right, so that's For Honor.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested into seeing how the game is 2 years from now, because the Ubisoft seems to be able to make good games 2 years after launch.
And if they keep supporting it, it could end up being like Rainbow Six Siege, right? Like that came out and nobody played it, and it's like right now it's got a huge community, and they have more updates and stuff. So
including D-Pal.
I really hope it turns into a Rainbow Six Siege, but I don't expect it, just based on how I think the most disappointing thing about the game is that the dev team has just refused to listen to the community about what they think is overpowered and what they think is underpowered, and they keep on just kind of skewing it in weird ways. And especially any new character is just ludicrously overpowered versus any previous character that's come out. So it's like, oh, a new patch comes out, I just have to buy the new character to compete, which is just shit, right? Like that just sucks. Anyways, moving on. Night in the Woods.
Just announced for Switch if you haven't played it yet. So Night in the Woods was a really fantastic game, and kind of answers the question of like good writing or good anime writing or whatever. And this is like one of those rare games. I have a couple of them on the list for this year, but it feels like a game that just feels textually interesting. Like it has a lot of stuff with unreliable narrator. Like you're not entirely certain of kind of the outcomes of some events by design in a way that doesn't feel confusing. Virginia. And it was just a really affecting game for a lot of different reasons. You wanted to get to know the characters, not because they offered any stat boosts or helped you get deeper in a Persona dungeon or anything like that, but because they were just like genuinely really interesting characters, and their story beats were all very interesting. And Persona, I compare it with Persona, even though I really shouldn't. They're two entirely different games. But Persona encourages multiple playthroughs because you can't get to know a character all the way through in one playthrough. Like you just don't have enough days, kind of thing, right? At least on the first playthrough. And I'm not going to replay Persona. Like it's an 80-hour game, and there's a lot. There's a lot to it.
I still haven't finished Persona once.
You haven't finished any Persona, so
hey, I finished 4, I think.
Okay.
Anyways.
But Night in the Woods is the game where, you know, you have, like, there's a certain, the game lasts about a week in terms of you have a certain number of nights and you get to choose who you spend the night with. And, you know, it actually, you know, you can't, there's like 3 or 4 different branches you can go down with the different side characters. And so they each have their own very unique events, and you actually can't do them all in the game. But it doesn't feel bad to replay the game because it's a, you know, it's maybe a 5 or 6 hour game. So replaying it doesn't feel like, you know, casting your kind of fishing hook down an empty abyssal hole for a new nugget right at the end of the game kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it was just a, you know, it's got fantastic writing, great music. They added an enhanced version out in October that adds in kind of there was like 2 supplemental packs. So it's just kind of just a very interesting game that reminds me a lot of Kentucky Road Zero or other interesting games that don't pull just from games for their history. They have roots in, you know, other elements of fiction. So which is something I really appreciate.
What's like the actual gameplay here? It seems like kind of a puzzle adventure
Nope,
game.
it's really you walk between places and talk to people. There are some light platforming elements and like some dream sequences, but there's honestly it's pretty much a narrative game, yeah.
Okay, cool. And then in March, something wonderful happened. The Switch happened.
You forgot.
Oh, I did forget because I had it highlighted.
I forgot Horizon 2.
Ignore me. Horizon Zero Dawn. So, Horizon Zero Dawn. Andrew and I played this a little bit. I don't know if you did, Jess.
No, yeah, as I was saying, it came out like as I was putting my PlayStation in the closet. I was like, I don't want to touch this ever again.
Yep, that's fair. So I have not gotten that far in this game, but it's definitely something that I really want to pursue a lot more, just because of the writing and every, like, the only complaint I have about this game is that the combat's a little sloppy, but everything else is just absolutely wonderful. And the combat's like a little sloppy, just like a little bit, but everything else is just absolutely amazing. So Andrew, maybe you can talk a little bit more about
that. The sense of wonder is great. The environments, some of the vistas, like I remember on Instagram there was a huge push of like using the photo mode. There was like a community around I think there was a hashtag for it, but like some of those pictures were absolutely beautiful. The combat, meeting a new dinosaur type, enemy type, is extremely exhilarating
and terrifying.
Yeah. The story is interesting. It's different. The apocalypse, like
it is a new play on the like apocalypse where we've like humanity has survived type stuff.
Yeah, it's post apocalypse. I think I think on the box it says like humanity like destroyed itself, and then now this is what life is normal. So it's not like, oh, back in the good old days when I was alive. It's like, no, like these are like the world blew up, like, hundreds of years passed, and now life is normal, like these things. And how it explains that is really cool. It's
so Jess, I think this is a good it's kind of what you wanted. I remember your complaints about like Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, how it was like 500 years after the apocalypse.
There was like move the skeleton out of bathtub.
Yeah.
So there's still like the back room is filled with skeletons and bullets lying everywhere, and it's been 500 years, shattered glass.
Yeah. So this kind of answers that, where it's like I don't know how many years it is after, but let's say like 500 to 1,000, whatever.
Yeah, we have no idea.
And the world's kind of like humanity survived, right? Like, and we did succeed in like being a society again. It's a little bit of a fucked up society, but it's a society, right? Versus something like your complaints about the other.
It's definitely the writing in it is different, and I like that. So I guess the overarching story arc is interesting, and I like that. I'd say the story itself is kind of trash.
So I feel like the story itself is trash, but the thing that every single time I think about why I want to play that game, I want to play that game to figure out what happened and why the world is the way it is. So it's a very interesting world that they created, but I guess they didn't really create an interesting story within this certain time point in that world. But also there's very interesting side quests that you go on. Like the characters are pretty cool for the most part. But the world itself is just really interesting and awesome.
And we're dancing around it because I still don't really want to spoil it, even though it's been almost a year. Because I think that the explanation is pretty cool. But yeah, it's definitely not. I know a lot of people really like this game. It's not really something I probably would remember too fondly very much, like moving forward. But it's definitely something. Like, it made 2017 a little bit special.
I feel like it's a game that I want more genres of. Like, I want more kind of...
You want more bow and arrow games? Yeah, well, there aren't too many of those.
I mean, like, so it's kind of like the Walking Dead stuff, right? Where, like, Walking Dead, the main writer of it has admitted that he doesn't really know how to write, like, a great individual story, but he created kind of an interesting world to build stories in. And the Telltale games kind of did that a little bit at first and have kind of fallen off since then. So I feel like there's somebody else that can take this world and what's happened to it and build a really interesting story around that. Maybe, I don't know.
We'll see.
But anyways,
this is definitely, there will be a sequel to this game.
Well, and if we think of Guerrilla Games, right? Like, does anyone remember Killzone 1?
Yes, but again,
that wasn't great. But by the time I got into Shadowfall, I was really enjoying that series.
But again, like, Killzone is a very interesting world. They just didn't really know how to build a story around that world, right? Like, it's a cool. Somebody had a premise.
Is it that interesting? It's just space Nazis.
It is. It is.
Well, there was some
literal space Nazis
later on with like humanizing the Helgans and the factions and stuff like that. But yeah, it was really just put a big dumb shooter in kind of thing.
It's true. It's true. But it was either way. Anyways, moving on to what I mentioned before. We got some Breath of the Wild.
Zelda.
So, Andrew. I know.
All right, let's get my opinion out of the way first. Let's preface: don't like open world games. Don't like games with very sparse narrative. And those are two big things for me.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild is an open world game. Has very sparse narrative. I played it. I didn't. So I'm not too hot on the game. But one thing I will say is that when I was playing it, like, I didn't want to put it down. It's just that, like, in hindsight, when I'm like, the next day comes around or I'm at work, I'm not like, I want to go back and play Zelda. But if I did pick it up, I was like, I'm having fun.
Mm.
So for me, this was probably one of the most eye-opening games I've played in a while, because I've always felt like games do not do openings correctly, specifically, and this game has one of the most perfect openings I've ever played, where it shows you things that are interesting and then it explains them to you like 3 or 4 hours later. And that's like everywhere you walk there's something interesting around the corner. I never felt like I had to go somewhere. I always just kind of wanted to go somewhere. I wanted to see what was beyond that mountain. I wanted to see what was beyond those trees. I wanted to see what was in the fog, right? And the game never told me that I had to. It was never saying, like, go there. I just wanted to be there. Also, this game has some of the most amazing dungeon design I've ever seen. Like, it's just the way that it makes you think about 3D space and how you have to interact with the environment that you're in is just incredible. Granted, I haven't beaten this game. I don't beat many games. That's just the thing. I don't beat many games. But, like, I beat 3 of the Ancient Beasts, and then I was kind of like, all right, cool. I do have complaints about this game. I think it's one of the worst Zelda games in terms of, like, world building and, like making Hyrule kind of seem like a...
You're wrong. I disagree.
Okay. So
we'll get into it, but...
There are definitely worse ones. But, like, just little things like... I guess maybe spoiler alert for the next 30 seconds. All of the bosses and all of the dungeons are just versions of Ganon, right? Like I missed that kind of, this boss feels like it lives in this dungeon and that kind of thing. Like all the bosses felt, the worst part of the game to me was the boss fights, and that is kind of one of the things that I very much look forward to in a Zelda game, right? And but the world build, I guess, like the grand scheme of the world itself was very well done.
Yeah.
But just like,
so for me, that issue with the bosses is like, I agree the bosses are as strong. I think the dungeons are amazing, but the bosses are weak, and that partly comes from like you have like there's no set order for anything.
Yeah.
So you have to like, you can approach them in any order. There's smarter ways they could have done it, having 4 versions of every boss depending on when you get to them, kind of thing.
Even just like having the bosses be thematically built to the dungeon that they were in, because they're just like these kind of red shadows that you just kind of throw. Like you could essentially beat them all in a relatively similar way. There are interesting ways that you can beat them, but you don't have to, right? And that kind of builds from that non-linear gameplay. But
so for me, Zelda, like in January of this year, I was like, Nintendo sucks, everything they do is terrible, they don't know how to make games, because this was at the end of the tail end of the Wii U. They hadn't released like any games for 2 years. They their big releases for like a couple months were an Animal Crossing amiibo board game and a Mario Tennis that literally just had the doubles mode in it, like no power-ups or anything. It was like, just a bunch of really slapdash garbage games. And so, I was really down on the Switch before it came out. I was like, the Wii U was such a failure, and there was, so few games, and I just wasn't interested in anything. And then Zelda, I was like, it's taken Assassin's Creed and all these other open world games, Bethesda, however many years to figure out a workable open world kind of thing. And even then, those games are kind of repetitive, a little bit buggy. And then Zelda came out, and not only was the world like chock full of stuff to do, like there were very few bugs, and it felt like everything worked together naturally. Like the whole everything metal is conductive, so you can solve some puzzles by like goofing it and throwing a bunch of swords on a pile to make electricity instead of doing the actual blocks, or the way fire catches on grass and you can use that to jump through the air. And so all of that stuff works really well, and is emergent and interesting. And then the world on top of that is just packed full of stuff to do as well. Like I spent a long time just shield surfing, because that like was mechanically fun to do. And we'll get to it later, but I played Skyrim.
Sorry?
And nothing in Skyrim is mechanically satisfying to do. Like there's no action in Skyrim that, I just want to do that because it's fun. That's not a thing, right? Now, of course, there's lots of years in between those games. But
yeah, I definitely feel like Zelda Breath of the Wild is the game that every single AAA company has wanted to make since 2010. Like they've said like, we want like fucking Fable. I want trees that grow up with you or something like that. And Breath of the Wild didn't necessarily do that, but it built a world to have fun in. Exactly the way that you were saying it. Like I love this game as much as my complaint about the bosses, whatever. But I love this game, and it did exactly what I wanted it to do. It does what I want every game to do narratively and gameplay wise and all that. Like it did everything that I've been asking games to do in the back of my head for the past 5 years. And it did them amazingly.
Yeah.
It's definitely a game I think like burgeoning designers should look at, and to try and see why things worked in this game that don't necessarily work in other games.
There's some interesting videos that Nintendo released as well, or one of the designers at least. Nintendo made in-world development tools. So if there was like a bug or something, playtester could just drop a flag on that location, and like physically in the world there would be a little bubble with like an explanation of what happened. And so like that's and the how there's like 900 Kokiri seeds or whatever, those kind of like came from that same thing of they built development tools specifically for the open world style game because they couldn't use their normal pipeline. They needed something that matched the scope of the game kind of thing. So it was a really interesting talk. Yeah.
So there was also in conjunction to that, there was also I remember hearing or reading an article or hearing a talk or something about how when they were developing the game, they specifically wanted all of the developers to play the game, right? So I think every 2 weeks or something like that, everybody would take a day and just kind of play the game and like go out in a direction. And if any developer found a direction that they could go in where they didn't find enough stuff to have fun for a certain amount of time, they're like, put something fun there. Yeah. Like, who cares? Just put something interesting there. Even if it's like a mountain you can surf down interestingly, or like a tree that you whatever. But it's a game where you really feel like the developers had fun building it and they loved building it.
Yep. Yeah, I'd love a no-clip documentary on its development.
Oh, for sure.
Definitely seems, or any documentary.
Yeah.
I think seems like
there's also like a really cool video that they posted where how the way that they built the mountains and trees to actually kind of make things look interesting as you came up on a certain angle, to be like, oh, you want to see what's around that because you can kind of see something cool, and they built like certain geometrical shapes so that would happen. It's such a well designed game in that way.
Yeah. And like, just like as a wrapping point for me, but anyways, but it was like such a pretty game as well. Like there are times where you would see it, like it would start raining and the clouds would move over, and then like the rain would start up, and then the clouds would get darker and it would be thundering, and I'd have to take off my armor, and I would just like stand on top of one of those lookout towers and watch like the environment, just because it felt so kind of like peaceful. And then then you get hit by lightning and fall over and the grass is on fire and you're dying. But it was a very interesting game. And the first time I saw like a dragon bust out of the water, and then like that, and because all the music is like procedural to events that are happening, and then like that very ethereal music kicks in, I was like, oh wow, this is kind of something else, getting goosebumps. But
also a hard Zelda game, surprisingly, like especially
I was so surprised how much it kicked butt right off the bat. Yeah.
It's like, holy shit, I died with 3 hearts, like, because that dude did 5 hearts worth of damage. Oh my goodness, this game's not easy. Anyways, I think we could talk about this for hours, because it is the game it is. So let's jump on to our next game. I Am Setsuna.
Yeah, so this is just the Switch re-release. I don't have much, too much additional to say about it, other than it's the first game from Tokyo RPG Factory, and it, I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to Lost Sphere, which is coming out in a couple weeks, because I think they nailed that classic RPG feeling of kind of getting a party together, growing in power, fighting evil, saving the world kind of thing. Like, it's a very straight line start to finish of increasing in power and saving the world. So they really, kind of brought that feeling together with an extra level of somberness because of the snow and the story behind it. So it was just sort of it felt like a very good classic RPG, and it made me excited for kind of what they're doing next.
So I did play this a little bit too, and I think I mirror your opinions pretty much exactly. I think this game was interesting. It definitely didn't kind of grab my attention as much as I would like it to, but everything that I saw in this game only makes me more excited for the next one. It's the kind of game that I've purchased and installed on multiple consoles, but the Switch was the one that finally actually got me to play it. So now we're into so that was March. So March 7th, Nier Automata.
I didn't play this until more recently. Nier Automata is definitely hyped up a lot, and I think it deserves it. The music is great, and the combat is decent.
It's platinum combat, right? Like, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not Bayonetta level. Like, I think Bayonetta is the
platinum,
like the action game like to beat in terms of mechanics, and like Nier Automata isn't up to there, but I think it's because they didn't necessarily focus on it. Like, they wanted to tell this weird Hideo Kojima-esque, like, requires 3, 4, 5 playthroughs until you understand the story, like, and we're talking about like melancholy and what is mean to be a human, and it's this is a game I think that has good writing. Like the dialogue is really cliche, but like I love it when a piece of art like has a thesis, which I don't think a lot of video games have. Like they just have like this interesting premise, and then they just sort of, it's an excuse to go from A to B. But this has like, we have a thesis. When you play this game, you're going to have a question that you're going to ask yourself at the end, and I love that about it.
So I definitely feel like this has been how Nier has been for a while, right? Like this is what the first Nier was as well. I didn't finish it. Jess, I know you finished it and loved it. So I feel like this is just finally Nier hitting mainstream and being developed by Platinum. Right? So like
your dreams.
Yeah. It's a wonderful game. I didn't get as far as I'd like to in it. I don't think I finished my first playthrough, but I definitely see what's here. And the only reason why I haven't finished it is because it's the kind of game where I got far enough into it where I was kind of like, okay, I don't have the time to actually play this game over the next few weeks. I just need to find like a week off or a weekend or something, or a couple weekends to just play it, because I didn't feel like I could do it justice within that time. Yeah, it's special in the way that the original Nier was.
Yeah,
it's pretty great. Slightly less narrative driven, but came out on the same day. Ghost Recon Wildlands.
So I love this game. I love this game so much. Not because it's, you know, a wonderful Sorry, let me repeat that. So this game is Just Cause 2
without all the fun or any of the or any of the jokes or
So it's with all of that stuff. Maybe not the jokes.
Really?
So the traversal, you can like buy a helicopter and just be in it and like fly around. So let me also say this. This game is shitty first person. Shitty single player. It's not a good single player game. It is an amazing multiplayer game. The amount of times where I would like go to a mission with 3 friends and one guy was new in the game and I'd just be the person piloting the helicopter that we like summoned onto the place that we were in. I'm like, all right, we're over the point, and I just jump out and he's like, where'd you guys go? Why is the helicopter? Where'd you? oh fuck! And he just like jumped. Like it was just a playground that you could have fun in. But the good thing about it has good first-person shooter mechanics. Like they're not amazing. They're not like top tier. But it's definitely like 8 out of 10 first-person mechanics with 8 out of 10 open world mechanics and multiplayer. Like the amount of times that we had fun just like driving down a highway and I just kind of like lean out the car and just like shoot a rocket in front of the car to make our car do flips, and people just go like, what the fuck? Like there's just so much fun to be had in this game. But it is a multiplayer, just like you want to get together with some friends on a Saturday, sit down and play a game. This is it. This is honestly, it's so fun.
But the issue, like with I only played it for a couple hours, and I didn't play with anyone, so I probably I don't have that same advantage. But like it's a real world recreation of Bolivia, and there's like, you know, like all sorts of dead bodies everywhere, and the story is just like so grim dark, and so it's like, you know, you're talking about it like it's Saints Row, but you know, there's like every couple intersections there's bodies hanging off of light posts and stuff like that, right? So it's like a real like kind of whiplash for it being like a party fun time game, right?
Ludonarrative dissonance.
Yep. No, I will definitely give it that. Granted, I didn't know about that stuff until after I'd kind of like had my fun with it. So ignorance is bliss in this case, I guess. But it was definitely. I'm very sad that we didn't actually save the stream, because I think when this game came out, we did a 6-hour stream of this, and it was the most fun I've had in a game for a long ass time. And unfortunately, it has those narrative struggles, and unfortunately, there's some, you know, geopolitical issues with it. But I did love it. And it's the game that I constantly. We'll talk about it later. But if PUBG didn't come out, it's the game that I constantly think that I would be playing still.
Interesting.
Like I ask Gray and I ask Sean all the time, like, hey, let's go play Ghost Recon. They're like, but PUBG. I'm like, well, okay. Right. But I do love this game. It's a blast to play as in multiplayer. But anyways, moving on to Snake Pass.
Snake Pass. This is a great fun time. So Snake Pass is, it's a 3D platformer with the change being your snake. You technically don't have a jump button. You just kind of like swirl around everywhere. The reason that I like Snake Pass so much is there's kind of like this, modern. Obviously, it's nothing compared to Mario Odyssey, which we'll get to later. But when it came out, there was like this kind of trend of getting back to 3D puzzle platformers. So there was a Hat in Time, and there's Yooka-Laylee, and there's a bunch of these other games. And for me, only Snake Pass really captured the feeling of what it felt like to be in those games for the first time, because the movement is everything. Like the Yooka-Laylee, it's just like kind of janky a little bit. Like, the jumping feels fine or whatever, but it wouldn't be fun in a box. Like, the fun of Yooka-Laylee is all the environments and the power-ups that you get and that kind of stuff. Also, whereas like Snake Pass could literally be like, a white room with a lattice fence that you can go in and out of, and it would still be like a bunch of fun to master the mechanic of it. So
yeah. Also, like Yooka-Laylee, that game got announced and it came out, and I haven't heard anything about it since.
Yeah.
Like this honestly reminds me of, what was that one where you had to like grow long enough to get to the moon that we played a lot?
Oh, Nobi Boy, but I love Nobi. So
yeah. So like this reminds me of the movement of that to a certain extent, which I remember us playing that a decent amount. That was
Nobi Boy. The game was so weird. What, like
this is when games could still be weird, like super weird.
Japan, dude. Japan.
Yeah, this game looks awesome. This again goes back to that whole like, I argue that at least 70% of your game is traversal around the world that you've created.
Yeah. Right? Well, yeah. If it's not an RPG or something.
Yeah. There's caveats. There's all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
But like, if you make let me say that if you make traversal in your game super fun, your game is significantly better. Like, let's rephrase that and reverse it a little bit. Because if there was an RPG where the traversal was super fun,
with good
traversal. Holy shit! Anyways, so moving on to probably at least two of us the most anticipated game of the year.
I have hot takes for days about Persona 5.
Ah, shit.
Persona 5
for days.
Hot take.
I also have not finished this game, so.
Oh, you're a great Persona fan.
Shut up.
My hot take for Persona 5 is that it's bad and I don't like it at all.
Okay.
It's that issue of like, so much of it is good. Like the style is great and the music is great and like all that stuff is really good, that it wasn't until not the end of the game, but until I had really like thought about it, that I realized I wasn't having any fun during the dungeons, and I wasn't having that much fun during the conversation parts, is just because like the writing isn't there for the amount of reading that you do, and the story is just kind of fine, and the characters are interesting and they have like interesting reveals, but it doesn't, nothing ever really like hit me like some of the other narrative games I played this year. And the design of the palaces was great. They were kind of these intricate puzzle boxes that you got deeper and deeper into. But because of some of the changes they made with the combat, they felt like punishments that I had to kind of get through to see the cool stuff and to see the story again, because I just wasn't having any fun doing the random battles. Mostly just because it was, I don't know whether I was playing on the wrong difficulty or if I had the balance wrong, but it was your main character is so powerful that you can have access to essentially every element. So I played every battle the same way. I'd load up the main character, scan what the enemy's weakness was, hit them, roll down the line until they were all down, all out, and then kind of finish the fight. And I did that, bar one or two enemies, which, this enemy's completely immune to everything but physical attacks. I could do that every time. And then the later you get into the game, and the more powers you get things that ignore even those special things. So you get like an ability that you spend a couple ammo and it just knocks every enemy down automatically. So, the combat was like a kind of a non-issue the whole time, except for boss battles and a rare occasion. But
interesting. It's, for me, like all of that is literally the opposite. Like I really fell in love with every single one of like pretty much every character. Shout out to Punk Rock Doctor, the greatest woman alive, even though she's technically fictional. But
she has a voice actor. That's probably
she has a voice actor.
Dead.
Like, and I'm really sad that the Shogi girl, what's her name, Hifumi Togo, I think, was cut out of being a main cast member. But I really like that the dungeons, the castles, I forget exactly what are they called? Palaces, right? The first one was a castle. The palaces were like not randomly generated, like the Personas 1 through 4, and they were like, this is a specific level. And I do agree, some of the writing, there's a lot of talk about the localization as well, like the translation. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like there's a specific scene in the beginning where like a detective goes like, I'll get that, and then her phone rings, and then Twitter's like, is this person also psychic? And it's not like that's a thing that's important. No, I think that was just a mistranslation or a poor localization thing. But I don't know. For me, the characters I still ended up loving and liking to get to know. The combat was, for me, fun. I do hear some of the like issues with it. But I don't know. It was, for me, it was like, this was a game that always kept me on the edge of my seat. I particularly loved anything outside of the actual combat stuff, like just hanging out in Tokyo with all my new friends. I don't know. It's
and you know, I don't want to say that I didn't like everything. The initial conceit, like when it starts off, it's really cool how like you get caught and then it's sort of all flashbacks and flash forwards to you being in jail and then you remembering what happened. That's a really good way to get into it and reminds you that as good as things seem now or whatever, they're not going to end up that way. And so I thought that whole structure was really unique. It just felt like it was too long for me, and because there were so many times where I was just waiting for the next thing to happen, or like there isn't enough time to do everything, but it also felt like I was just at a killing time on some of the days, and also like it really overstays its welcome, particularly like in the end. There's some twists, like it really wraps everything up, and then it's like, oh wait, we need to have a normal JRPG crazy last boss battle, so like introduces a bunch of stuff and then has you do like a fighting god crazy thing at the end, and it just felt like so out of place, and so that was like kind of like the cherry on the top of, oh, I'm feeling done with this game, and I'm feeling, like not everything is worth my time, and then it was like, and here's some more of stuff that's really dumb and not worth your time, kind of thing.
So my like overall complaint about most JRPGs currently is that they don't come out on the Switch or on a handheld console, and that's legitimately why I haven't finished this game. I find it very difficult to play turn-based games on like a big screen TV. So I'm gonna do some like structure rechanging around my apartment so I can actually have a PS4 on my computer desk so I can be like watching TV, watching Twitch or something at the same time. But like, I feel like a lot of the arguments that you guys are making where stuff wasn't happening quick enough, blah, 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 kind of gets mitigated when you're playing it on a handheld console. Because I really felt like the game did take a while to get in, not to get interesting, but just everything took a little bit of time. And I was like, I could just be like, I have to be like on my couch playing it there when I could just like be on my PC or something doing something else. So I do kind of, I think I will love and play this game once it gets its Persona 5 Platinum Edition on whatever, on like the Vita or the Switch. Right? Like I will play this game a shit ton then. I do want to play this game. The only reason I haven't is just because I have a hard time playing this kind of game on console. It's just a thing. And something like Tales of Berseria fixed that by just having more active combat, right? Not fixed it, but solve that thing that goes wrong in my brain about this problem. Yeah.
So I definitely think that like games can be shorter. I think it's kind of it sucks that JRPGs have a thing. Like one of the features is that they're 100 hours. Like I don't need that.
I even feel that way about Horizon Zero Dawn. Like people, I expect that game to be like 10 to 12 hours. People are like, no, it's like 20, 25 hour game. I'm like, ah, fuck, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Shit. Okay.
I have to go to work.
Yeah. I need other shit to do, and I legitimately don't. In 90% of cases, I don't feel like your game can actually fill that. Right?
Yeah.
In a small amount of cases, it absolutely can, and certain games definitely warrant that. But you know.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's Persona 5. Back in April 18th, we had Flint Hook.
Flint Hook. Yeah, for me, Flint Hook is, I think, one of the most games because it feels so like mechanically perfect and satisfying on so many different levels, and it does it like effortlessly. Like the main part of it, it's a randomly generated side scroller, roguelike kind of thing, but it iterates on itself in certain ways, and that basically the game takes place in 4 dungeons, and then once you've beat those 4 dungeons, you unlock the last dungeon, which is actually just kind of all the dungeons put together. So it doesn't feel as daunting as a regular roguelike because the structure of their game means that you've run these places before and you're familiar. So it's not like a normal roguelike where you'll get, super familiar with the first part, and then you'll get 3 dungeons in and you'll die to that boss because he does a move he doesn't recognize. In this one, you've beaten all those bosses before, probably a couple times, because you can go back and do them again to get harder variations, to get more gear, that kind of thing. So by the time you do the final dungeon, you don't feel like you're blindsided by anything. And so that's a really great structure on top of the actual Flint Hook. Feels amazing to like latch out and hit stuff. And, it's that sort of thing where you first start out the game, you're running on the ground and it feels kind of dumb, and you're shooting kind of weird because it doesn't use the stick to aim. Because you have to use your thumb on the actual buttons, and then kind of a couple hours in, it clicks, and you're doing these aerial acrobatics, and it feels amazing. And it's just I want to see speed runs of this game, where I play, see it take off, but it just kind of I haven't seen that much talk about it, and I really think it kind of deserves more attention.
Yep. No, it's. And it's like a really pretty game too.
Yeah.
All the the art in it, and like the animation of when you open a door, like you hook and open a door, like he morphs into it. Like it's really cute. It's definitely it has that little. This is what you remember, like the 16 8-bit games looking and feeling like, but not what they actually were like.
Right.
The animation, like that animation in it is gorgeous. I didn't play it for too long, and I also like the trend now for like roguelikes, or I guess roguelites, is that there's a little bit of persistence. Like there's some upgrades you can get, so you don't feel like you're wasting your time if you have a particularly bad run. But yeah, it's got that arcadey goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not know about this game until now. So, no comment from me. Moving on, Prey.
A lot of people liked Prey. I don't know. I don't actually have much to say about it. So I played it.
Did you like BioShock?
I loved BioShock.
Okay.
But
that's like the only thing. So I want to play Prey because the people that have told me, if you like BioShock, you'll like this. And while a few of the BioShock games I didn't love, in the moment I loved them, and in retrospect I'm not so fond of them, except for the first one, which is just amazing, and screw you if you don't like it. So that's like the things I've heard about it. But
yeah, it's got that BioShock-y feel. I don't know, something about it didn't click with me. The premise seems cool, the mechanics seem cool. I think maybe it takes a little bit too long for the mechanics to get introduced. Like the first, a lot of complaints I hear, but the first part of it is kind of slow. I don't know. I dropped it pretty quickly. I don't have too much to say about it, to be honest.
That's fair. that makes sense. All right, so moving on from that. Next Machina.
Yeah, Housemarque. Housemarque is one of my favorite developers.
Housemarque did that?
Resogun is still one of my favorite PS4 games. Next Machina is like the 2D isometric shooter version of it. And like it's got like that classic Housemarque feel. It's super fast paced. Anytime you make a mistake, it's like your fault. So the game that never really feels cheap. And you like learn. There's like a whole bunch of different enemy patterns and like tools you have to use. Like I don't know. I really love that game. I haven't like beat like I've gone through all the stages and I beat all the bosses and stuff, but I haven't done it like in one playthrough. I haven't done it in like the no continues, like the harder difficulties. It was a game where I played it like an hour or two every night, or like half an hour every night for a few weeks just to try and get better at it. And it is kind of sad that Housemarque made an announcement like these arcade style games, we love making them. People say they want us to make more. Nobody's buying them, so we're going to have to pivot and try new genres. Thank you for the people who support. I'm a little sad that that's happened.
Yeah.
Because there aren't too many people making these kinds of games anymore. But it's got the beautiful voxel style that Resogun has.
This actually reminds me a lot of another game that came out this year, which I totally forgot about until now. Fury, in a lot of the same ways. Fury was I mean, it's a little less crazy than this in certain regards, but more crazy in other regards. But it's both of these like very similar and very amazing.
Yeah.
I don't think I played this though.
Thanks, Eugene Jarvis.
Yeah. So we did jump into June with that last one, so we're halfway through the year. So going on to the next June release. ARMS! You guys defend ARMS against me.
I'm a huge fan of ARMS. I love it. And it has like, I don't know, they've added like 6 or 7 fighters. And part of it is like the Switch's attractiveness as a game console. Part of it is whatever else, because like I got really into Street Fighter. And I guess the problem for me with Street Fighter was like it felt far away or whatever, like it was always behind new patches and whatever else, whereas ARMS, it was like there was like a news update, there's a new character in ARMS, and it's like, okay, I'll jump in and do that. And I just really enjoyed, it's a simple game to learn, and it felt like there's a high enough skill ceiling where it's like it kind of rewards mastery without having to do mechanical rote practicing of cortical forward punches, that kind of thing. It's sort of just a fighting game where you get right into the top level stuff of positioning and spacing and punishing, whiffed attacks and when to super and all that kind of stuff without having to practice any of the dexterity stuff. So I really liked it.
Yeah, it's a fighting game where, it's just the mental game. You're not worried about button presses too much, which is great for me.
Yeah,
fighting game enthusiasts probably hate hearing that, but for someone like me, it was really fun.
Yeah, and just we'll get into the Splatoon, but like the online feels really easy and seamless. Like there's this whole party mode thing where you can play 2 players on the same console or whatever, and it just kind of like dumps you into a room and like matches you with a rotating set of people and rotates the game type and does all that stuff kind of automatically. And so it can build up these really like on the fly rivalries between people as you match them, and then the next game you're matched with them in a 2v2 versus another person. And that it just felt like that that was some of the characters, because the later characters they added were like they had like extra levels of complexity to them, and so it was like, oh, I don't know how to play this character. You just jump into the party mode and you'll see probably another one do some high level stuff, and it's kind of like a low stress area to learn. And then when you get into the actual ranked mode, there's a proper ranked mode. You have to like really understand the fundamentals, and it felt satisfying just to kind of learn and get better at it. So
yeah. And some of the stages are really cool. Like there's the one where there's the spinning tops.
Yeah.
It's like I hear people talk about a lot. Like that stage genuinely changes the game, how you play it.
They had to leave it out of the ranked mode because there's too many people playing.
I definitely can imagine that. But yeah, it's all the different like weapon types have very distinct advantages and disadvantages. Like, and there's opportunity to punish if you miss a right hook. Like, it takes so long for your arm to get back that there is a definite opportunity for your opponent to punish you, and I like that.
And there's some like really high level strats too in terms of like what arms you pick. You know, for like you can pick a light arm and do a bunch of pokes, and they're really easy. And it's the same sort of thing where I was like, oh, Nintendo's doing a shoulder fighting game. How's this gonna work? But it actually ended up being kind of a blast to play. So
yeah, that's fair. All right, so the game that I know you guys have a lot to say about, Stormblood. Final Fantasy XIV Stormblood.
I haven't. Yeah, it's so. I love Final Fantasy XIV, man.
Yeah,
it's probably going to be my first and only MMO because I cannot imagine putting this much time into a game ever again. But
yeah, I'm the same exact way. It was my first MMO, and I just like I've come to know so much about the world and all this other stuff that I just like, you know, it's hard to be objective about it because like I'm so like sold on all of the elements of it. I just fan of Final Fantasy, but you know, so now you get to like inhabit this like fully realized world, and it's constantly expanding, and there's so many ways to carve your own path through it, which I find like fascinating in terms of like there's more stuff than you'll ever be able to do unless you're, you know, a crazy person. But you know, so it was like this year was the first time that I actually tried PvP, and I didn't hate it. It wasn't overcomplicated. It really kind of a like a Dota mode where you have a set rack of moves and you're applying them to another team, and you know, and there's like 3 or 4 different PvP modes, and they just added like a Dota mode essentially where you're doing creep protection. I haven't even got into that, but you know, so it's like you can play it by yourself because there's a story and there's your own character level. You can play it as a party, doing, you know, raids and stuff with your friends. You can do it like basically in any way you want, and all of that stuff is going to be interesting and look great. So it's kind of a very strange game, like where there's essentially infinite of it, and it's all pretty fun.
Yeah, it's definitely, and the single, like, I love the mentality of this MMO where the devs are like, this is a game where you play for a couple weeks and then drop it.
Yes.
Don't worry about it. If you want to stay, that's awesome. If you don't,
here's some high level grinding for, you know, animal weapons, and it'll look really cool. Get it. Yep. But if you want, you can just go patch to patch, jump in every, you know, 4 months and just have a great time with the new story, and it feels healthy. Like they're not trying to trap you in to a rotating update schedule of special events and limited time unlockables and, you know, like all this other stuff that's been controversial and the rest of it. It feels like a game that, you know, it wants you to enjoy what's there and on your own terms. It's never trying to force you to do anything or require you to get to a certain point. Which, you know, it shouldn't be like, you shouldn't have the economy in mind when you're thinking about a game, but it's kind of unavoidable with this kind of game, and it just feels generous in that way, in that it doesn't, you know, it's not all consuming kind of thing.
Yep. And the content, there's a lot to enjoy. Like I remember you and I, we talked about the story, the single player story, and I think we agreed that Heavensward felt like it's very lore focused, it's very epic, it's very like things that revolve around a nation, and while the nation part is true, the stories in this one are a lot more personal, particularly like the side quests. It's like, and not in like a cheesy way. It's kind of cliched still, but there's that in Heavensward. If like to raise the stakes, they're like, and all the people will die if you fail. But in this one, it's like, hey, like this one random no-name character, like, will be persecuted because of the action, like, and that's the stakes, and those stakes are a lot more personal. So I really like that about this.
It has one of the better Final Fantasy stories of any Final Fantasy game, and it's in an expansion pack to an MMO, right? Like it's sort of weird to have that happen. But yeah, it gets into the mentality of certain characters, and like shades of gray, and kind of what it means to have a homeland and all that kind of stuff, which is all, I think, really, really interesting.
Yeah, this is definitely
I love Gosetsu.
This is definitely the kind of like MMO that I want to get into. I've tried multiple times with both of you guys.
many times.
And like I think it comes back to me for that, like you were saying, that it's this world that you've grown so accustomed to and you love.
Mm-hmm.
Because like literally every single time I play it, I'm just like, I just want this to be WoW. Like I just want all of this stuff to happen in WoW. I want your character to switch classes. I want like the all the stuff that you guys were talking about with the economy and how they don't expect you to play for hours and hours and hours. I just want all of that stuff in World of Warcraft, and that's the only reason why I'm not playing this game right now. Because I do enjoy it. It's just like, man, why am I talking to, I don't know, name a random character in the game? Why can't I be talking to Thrall? That'd be super cool if this was Thrall, right? Like there's no other...
Gosetsu is the best character,
right? Like you know what I mean, right? Like it's just and I feel like regardless of whatever MMO comes out in the future, we're both, all three of us are going to have those issues of just like, oh, this isn't Final Fantasy 14 or this isn't WoW, because these two games are like, unless WoW dies within the next few years, which probably isn't going to happen, or unless Final Fantasy 14 just dies within the next few years, which probably isn't going to happen, unless like Final Fantasy 17 is an MMO, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like these games are just going to constantly live forever, essentially, right? At least as far as we're concerned.
Well, or decades, like because 11 was an MMO. It just
it's true. It's going to live for a long
time.
But the only reason why 11 died really was because 14 came out, and 14 did breathe new life into the game. But like like unless WoW 2 comes out, WoW's probably not dead, right? Yeah. And it's interesting in that regard. But yeah, so that's June. We're halfway through the year, guys, which means there's a game called Dream Daddy.
Dream Daddy. So Dream Daddy, I think, rose to prominence a little bit because it's got like kind of a joke name and a joke premise or whatever, and so like that's how oh, have you heard about this? Because it was like on news sites and stuff, like about like here's a gay dad dating simulator game. But the reason that I like this game so much is because it has a heart behind all of that. Like it has jokes that are really funny, like actually laughing out loud jokes, with text boxes, like and no voice acting, and you're still laughing at the comedic timing of these jokes. It has a huge cast of characters that you kind of pick one to go through the game. You just kind of do the game multiple times, but like each one of the characters has feels really fleshed out. They have their own quirks. They have an issue that you kind of help them solve over the course of the game. And then there's like the interactions with your in-game daughter, which are like really sweet and like deal with the issue, like the struggle of parenting in a way that feels like really authentic. And so there's like the veneer of silliness, and then behind all of that is a game that just has a lot to say and is really articulate at kind of getting those points across, without feeling like it's being too pushy on any of its morals or anything like that. But it's legitimately funny. So
that's fair. I've heard a lot of good things about it, especially just that kind of thing coming from Game Grumps just blows my mind.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like I have a friend who watches a lot of it, but I only know Aaron from like the old shorts or whatever, the Metal Gear Awesome and whatever, yeah. And so I didn't watch Game Grumps. I didn't realize that it was written by any of the people there, and so just coming not even as a fan, taking the game on its own terms, was able to win me over kind of all the way. So
interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely on my list. I do really want to play it.
All right, so Splatoon 2.
Yeah, so I've actually cooled off a little bit on Splatoon 2 since it first came out. When it came out, I was really excited. I loved the style of the game. I love, like all the clothes you can get is just like so much fun to go shopping all the time. And except for it's just like the the structure of the game is so difficult. Like if you want to play with a friend, it's not easy. You kind of like it takes a while, and you get matched up into a room, and you're just sort of in a room together, and there's no guarantee that you'll even be playing on the same team. For the normal mode, if you want to unlock ranked, you have to get to like a very high level, and then that opens up some more of the features. But like, you know, you have to put in like 15 hours or something to unlock that. And that's the same with the horde mode. It's really fun, but you know, to get to the actual higher difficulties, you have to have played it, you know, a lot of times, and it's not available all the time. So it's just like constant push and pull between the game is fun and there's fun stuff to do, but it's buried behind all of this other stuff. And it would be better with people, but that's obfuscated as well. So, you know, I think it does a lot of really smart stuff, but it's just like too hidden for anyone to really get into it with a group of friends or anything like that.
Yeah. And as for all the talk that we have and will be talking about, like Nintendo's successes with the Switch, like online, particularly partying up, I think is something they still have. Like,
still friend codes, still
so
friend
many,
codes.
like so many problems.
Oh yeah, and the solution for voice chat in the game, it involves like having a phone and having an adapter to have your headset and having the Switch, and you see the room on the Switch and you enter it on your phone, and then like you hook them all together. It
involves having your smartphone on, like
on. You can't turn the screen off. Yeah.
If the screen turns off, your headset turns off.
Like, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it's nuts.
That's fucking brutal.
Yeah, so the game is really fun, but it's like, are you going to party up? Even if you are, you're all going to have so much kit to even get going. It's kind of a shame.
Yeah. Okay.
Bricks.
I like, to be honest, I was never really interested in Splatoon, but like all the stuff you're saying just kind of makes me go, oh, that sounds, oh shit.
Yeah.
But it has amazing music and amazing style, and the horde mode once you get to the high levels, so it's not all bad.
I love looking at screenshots of like, particularly those two announcers, like,
oh yeah,
they're fashionable AF.
Yeah, and so sorry to go on a side tangent, but like all of the music is made by different in-game bands, and each of those bands has like a whole style and album covers, and they have a pun name on their genre of music, and also like a sea theme. And so like all of that side stuff is just really fantastic. They just added like a new band came to town, and so they added like multiple albums, and you know, it's like they had all the album art and other stuff.
Yeah,
and so it's like,
I'm into that.
It's really fun. The puns are great. Like there's the hat store is called Cooler Heads, because it's like cooler heads prevail, and you buy new hats, and it's really smart. I love it.
Awesome.
I'm into that.
So, Pyre.
I'm just gonna go, and you guys can talk about Pyre. I haven't played it yet.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is another game I want to talk to somebody about so much. But this game is fantastic. Supergiant Games. They're also one of my favorite developers. Transistor was like my game of the year that came out. Pyre, we'll see. It's great. It's NBA Jam, but with fantasy characters. It's got a really great premise. It's got some great design choices about leveling up your characters, and the story. Like, this is similar to Persona, where like the cast of characters is pretty much the entire game. The gameplay itself like is fun and interesting and varied with all the different characters and abilities you have, but at the end of the day, it is about hanging out with these characters and getting to know their their hang-ups and stuff. I really can't say anything else except go play it, go buy it, support these guys. And Greg Kasavin, he makes great games.
Yeah. I've listened to the soundtracks to both of the Supergiant games for like literal hours. I love both of them.
Darren Korb writes great music.
But I'm guessing at some point it's going to be coming to the Switch, and I know I'm just going to enjoy it more when it's there. So I'm just going to kind of wait and like media blackout until it gets there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I did love this game as well. I didn't get as far as I'd like to, but it was special in the time that I put forward for all the reasons that Andrew said.
so Greg Kasavin, somebody was talking about it. I think it was Walt Whitman, the guy who wrote. He helped write Battlefront 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2, the one that came out this year. But he also wrote Spec Ops: The Line.
Oh fuck!
I think he was talking about it, and he said Bastion is the first time where I played a game and I could see the creator who made the game. Yeah. And he talks about like you see it all the time at books and movies. But he said I think this is the first time it's happened with a game, and like Greg Kasavin, you see his progression through Bastion, through Transistor, and through Pyre, and like it, like playing their games is genuinely like inspiring to me.
Yeah.
Go play it. Go buy it.
And the other crazy, amazing game that I did not get time to play this year, but I wanted to, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice.
It's like every one of my favorite developers made games this year. It's so great.
Ninja Theory. They're so good.
Okay. Enslaved, super underrated. This game is. It's at the end of the day, it's all about Melissa Juergens, who is the titular Senua, and like her story is hilarious. She constantly like she's been at like a bunch of award shows because this game has been like cleaning up at the Game Award shows and stuff, and like she's always like, I'm not an actress, I'm just a video producer, I was a stand-in, and then everyone's like, boo, you're the best. The acting performances are great. The technology behind it is like really fun to hear about, and like just the story about how this game was made, and obviously the story in the game about someone just dealing with personal trauma and mental health. Like, I'm still not convinced. So when you start the game, like the first credit, I think, is the director, and the second one is like a psychologist, like on-site psychologists. What do you call those people? Consultants or something, to talk about how to make sure that like the portrayal of her mental health illness was accurate. I'm not 100% sure it is. I still have to do more research into it. The gameplay is decent, but at the end of the day, it's just like watching this woman like overcome her personal trauma, I guess, and that's like a great story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't played it, but I'm kind of happy that it exists, like a shorter AA game from a game company that I have a lot of respect for. And so like it's an interesting kind of space for a game to exhibit, which I kind of like. And I read about the fake out about permadeath too as well, which I kind of loved, which is like a fun trick to play. But
this game's just it. I feel the same way as you, Jess, where it's just like it's a game that I'm so happy it exists. Like it's so amazing that something like this is out there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so moving on to West of Loathing.
West of Loathing, yeah. So Kingdom of Loathing was like the OG free-to-play browser game that like its molecules were jokes. Literally everything that could be a joke. And then so this game is it's point-and-click adventure kind of game, plus a RPG a little bit. But it's the same thing where like it's a game that just wants you to laugh and just wants you to have fun, and so it's got jokes hidden in the options menu. It's got jokes hidden in like literally everything that it can. Item descriptions, like there's a whole part where there's like a spittoon bucket in a gross saloon, and so like it spends a whole paragraph describing how nasty it is, and then it's like, do you stick your hand in? Yes, no. And so like and it's like yes, and it's like it describes it again in a like, are you gonna stick your hand in this? Yes. And so it keeps on doing that, and then you do, and it's like, you found a ring. It's gross. I hope you're proud of yourself. And there's a saloon bucket in every single saloon, like a spittoon, sorry, in every single saloon in the game. And there's unique text describing how nasty it is. And if you keep doing them, the game keeps questioning your decision to keep sticking your hand in these spittoons, and like keeps making them grosser and grosser. And like it's like, you got a shirt, it's gross. It's a good shirt though. I hope you're happy, whatever. And so it's just such a funny game. And you know, it doesn't look like much. It's just black and white Stickman, but like there are jokes coming out of everywhere, and they're really funny. And it's just such a great time. You know, because the character classes are all like Snake Charmer and whatever else. They're all like so weird. Pastamancer. You know, traditional, like just kind of effervescent,
traditional stuff, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like internally consistent.
Yeah.
So it's just a really fun game, and I just want some jokes. Like jump in, and you'll be laughing by the time you finish creating your character. So.
Awesome. Reminds me of so this was a game that both Andrew and I played this year, but isn't on the list. Is the South Park game?
Oh yeah.
It's not maybe as like jokes upon jokes upon jokes, but definitely a similar like just joke crazy RPG that was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Sonic Mania.
Sonic Mania, yeah, this is the type of game where I played some Sonic as a kid, and I didn't. It was like they were kind of hard. I didn't get. This plays like you imagine Sonic should have played like all those years. I can't say authoritatively because I haven't played all the Sonics. I wasn't a huge Sonic fan, but this is the best Sonic I've ever played. And my favorite part about it was that it's got a boss at the end of literally every level, and each one of those bosses is fantastically unique and plays with the structure of the game. And it feels a little bit like a treasure game. So like Gunstar Heroes or Alien Soldier, where, you know, it's just like, here's tons and tons and tons of bosses, and they're all so much fun to do. And then there's an amazing Sonic game around that for, you know, learning the routes and doing this other stuff. So it's that same type of thing where the game just keeps on giving you new stuff to see. And, you know, and it wants you to get in and learn what makes Sonic go so great, and gives you the tools to do that. I think
the thing that I heard about this game that made me very interested in playing it, because I was like you, I wasn't a huge Sonic fan, but I'm definitely interested in something like this, but not enough to really spend the money on it. Yeah. But I've heard that this game is like, it gives you the platforming elements when you need platforming elements, and it gives you the speed when you need speed, and it knows exactly when to do that and when you want it, and it delivers on everything. And I'm like, okay, yeah. That's kind of like been my issue with Sonic, is like you think you should be going fast, and all of a sudden you just hit a wall or something, right? And then it's like, all right, do platforming for a bit. Yeah, this game, it's definitely the time where I actually think I'll be impressed with a Sonic game for the first time.
Now, is it better than Sonic Adventure 2 Battle?
Yes, it's better than Sonic Adventure 2 Battle.
Don't believe you.
Because Andrew and I played that game so much. Like, way more than I'd like to admit.
That game is not good.
Yeah.
We played it so much as children.
So, that was Sonic. Now Matterfall.
So, Matterfall. So, Housemarque somehow came out with 2 games that year.
Oh, no.
But...
Okay, yeah, so they came out with 2 games.
Yeah, Matterfall was the game I was more excited for, but I think Nex Machina is the one I enjoyed more. It's an arcade, kind of like Sonic. It's in the fact that it's like an old schooler genre. It's like the 2D platforming shooting, I guess Metroid-y, but I think it's just not my genre. I prefer the Nex Machina sort of arcade score, time attack, like the score chaser. This is much more of a, these are the levels, go through them.
So I definitely feel like this is the game that I would be interested in. Something more Metroidvania-ish-esque type thing is something that definitely intrigues me.
I don't know if there are power-ups. I like glossed over this game when I played it. I don't know if there are power-ups that are like Metroidvania might have been a misnomer. Yep. I can't remember if they're like come back to this level with this power up to unlock more things about the level. I think it's just like it's just a 2D. I meant Metroid in like it's a 2D
it's like a 2-point,
platformer with shooting in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Well, all right.
Maybe Mega Man would have been a better.
Mega Man 11. Yeah.
Maybe like honestly, one of the games that I loved so much, but has never really been redone in recent years, is Shadow Complex. It was like a game that came out a while ago in the 360.
Starring Nathan Drake.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, moving on to Uncharted Lost Legacy.
Not starring Nathan Drake.
Not starring Nathan Drake. So, not the best Uncharted. Might be my favorite. And this goes back to an earlier point where we talked about games don't have to be too long. I think every Uncharted is 2 hours too long.
That's definitely true.
Every level like scene could be shortened by 2 to 10 minutes, and those games would be much better. Uncharted Lost Legacy is like 8 hours, and it's so good. Like it's got the Uncharted 4 mechanics. It's got all that stuff. But the best part about it is there's that one level they market a lot. It's like the open world level. And as you drive around in the Jeep going from like different little puzzle points, Nadine and Chloe, the two characters, the main characters in the game, just sort of talk shoot the breeze, and they're like
shit the breeze.
They occasionally like talk about their own personal hangups and like why they're on this journey looking for the tusk of Ganesh, looking for Hoysala. I can't remember the exact. Whatever. It's like great to have to explore more like Indian mythology. Hinduism has like that's one of the things I like about Persona is it touches on like Christian mythology, Hindu mythology, like all these different things, and it's great to see like people sort of expanding, going past just the Greek mythology, that kind of stuff. It's short, which I love, and it does great character development as well, and the mechanics are fun enough.
Which has been the case for every Uncharted.
Which has been the case for every Uncharted.
I feel like it's definitely a game that has the gameplay is good enough to warrant the story that they tell. Where in a lot of situations where people talk about how crazy the story is, I find that the gameplay is not up to par for me to get from point A to B to experience the story. And Uncharted, I wouldn't even say it just like hits the bare minimum. It surpasses it by most points, right? And this is definitely one that I've wanted to play.
Yeah, I do a thing where I trade in games a lot because to force myself not to play them again, just to like move forward. But like I might have to go buy this again because it's just fun to hang out with Chloe and Nadine.
Yeah, it's fair. All right, so after Uncharted, Mario Rabbids, the game that had no right to exist and shouldn't exist, but holy shit is this game amazing. So this game is like, let's take Mario and Rayman Raving Rabbids and put them in an XCOM game. And what is 2017? I don't know. What the fuck is this? So this game is awesome. It's really, really good. There are some issues I have with it, but like all of those are very, very minor points. For the most part, it's a super casual but not casual, amazing XCOM game. Like little things like your characters can't overwatch every turn. Only Mario and Luigi can, and they can only do it once every 3 turns. Your characters have these really interesting skill trees that they can traverse. The boss battles are all so interesting. Like there's this one boss where it's a donkey, like it's a monkey rabbit, and you have to kind of like steal his bananas and move him to certain positions where you can damage him, which is just not a thing that happens in XCOM. Like XCOM is they built these amazing mechanics, and it's very traditional in the way that the actual mechanics turn out. Like you shoot the enemy, they die, they might teleport, but really in the end you kill your enemy by shooting them. And Nintendo in this game did the classic Nintendo thing where it's like, maybe you don't kill the dude by shooting him. Maybe you kill him by making him eat a poison banana. You know, like the crazy Mario Odyssey, Zelda stuff, right? This game is wonderful. Even like the way that you traverse the map, where it's like, you can walk up to a teammate and they launch you in the air and you bounce on an enemy and then you land and then you slide into the enemy and then you shoot them. Like this game is a lot of what, it's not necessarily what I want in XCOM, but it's a lot of, they basically took the XCOM formula and turned it on its head and innovated it on it in every way. But if any of this shit showed up in XCOM, I would also be pissed. Right? Like I want Sorry.
There's actually an interesting, like a great interview I read on Polygon that came out recently, and it's basically him going through the guy who made XCOM.
Yeah.
And he talks about Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and he's like, I think there are some questions like, are you upset that like they didn't talk, like they stole your genre? And he's just like, no, like this is freaking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And he made like the tide raises all boats kind of thing methodology. But he also talked about, so it's funny you said you don't want any of this in the next XCOM. He was talking about like watching movement happen, and apparently he immediately went to the next day where he went to his dev team and design team, and he was like, we thought movement was just walking. It's like, we need to change how movement works.
So yeah, let me rephrase that. Like I don't want, a lot of this would be super interesting in XCOM, but there's some it's the silly Nintendo stuff about it, right?
Yeah.
Like the very obviously, like a boss is a giant monkey that needs to eat bananas, for example, like the example that I brought up. But it's the kind of thing that fits like XCOM is a genre that is only in XCOM currently, maybe in Divinity, maybe, right? But it's mostly just in a game like XCOM, and Nintendo took it and made it their own, like they always do, right? Which is, I feel like, kind of a theme of this year with how Nintendo has done things. They just take a genre and they say like, no, we're gonna Nintendoify it, and they did, and that's gonna change those genres forever. Yeah, and this is one of those.
And the guy in the interview, he finishes it off by saying like, there's definite, like, it's easy to become siloed, especially when you work on a game for so long.
Yep.
So it's great when you have like competition, contemporaries to like feed different ideas. So you're definitely going to see how people move in XCOM 3 or whatever next game that they make. Like that's going to be radically changed, almost guaranteed.
Yeah,
and cool, like I can't wait.
And that's
see what else happens up.
That's just amazing. That's just amazing.
And it came from a game starring Mario and Rabbit.
Yeah, I like how they knew you weren't gonna want to use the Rabbit, forced to keep one on your team, so you can't just make a team of all Mario characters.
Yeah, it's so good. I love this game. Yeah. Anyways, all right, moving on. The game's wonderful. Destiny 2. Let's go to the other side of the spectrum. All right.
I've just been really happy looking at all the Destiny 2 news stories, like every time where it's like Destiny 2 introduces new feature, fans get up in arms, Destiny 2 apologizes about new feature and says they're gonna do better going forward. And that's like the same exact like sequence of events that has happened like multiple times for every patch, for every release. So I haven't played it. I played a lot of Destiny 1, but that's been entertaining in and of itself.
So for us, Andrew, do you like this game?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't.
I will never play it again.
Yeah. So Andrew specifically went through like 3 weeks where they beat the raid together.
Yeah.
And I'll let you kind of go from there.
Yeah. So Evan and we played this game like a lot.
Yeah.
On PS4. And you played a little bit more with Gray and Sean.
I got significantly farther on PC.
Right.
I'm up to, I can do the raid on PC. I didn't even get to raid level on PS4.
Yep. And so like the mechanics are rock solid as usual from Bungie. And while there's so much good that's come out of games as service, like Destiny is like a classic. Destiny and Destiny 2 is a classic example of like how we can sort of deteriorate a game. Mm-hmm. There's so many business decisions around it. Everything that's bad about that people are complaining about the game is from like business decisions. The game itself is.
Thank you. I feel like this was definitely kind of the beginning of the end for kind of the loot box like games have turned into kind of this money making scheme instead of actual games. Like it started with Destiny, it turned into Battlefront 2. It also, we'll talk about it later, but it turned into Shadow of War type thing. But like this was kind of when it was like, yeah, you know, For Honor sucked at it, but it's a Ubisoft game. They've sucked at it for a while. Like it's okay. Yeah. Same with any EA game. But this was the one where it was like, holy shit! Like this is bad. Like that. Like the way that they've implemented stuff is just not good, and it surprisingly got worse and worse throughout the year.
Yeah.
Our cat needs to be fed. Sorry. He's granted. Like. You did? I think the design, it's fun to have a first-person shooter where the raid, the end game content, isn't about how good you can shoot. It's 100%. Mm-hmm. Let me rephrase that. The raid is 49% communication and 51% hoping a glitch doesn't wipe your team. That was like a huge issue. But when I wrangled up 6 people, we had like a group of 7 or 8, and we like just kept switching out people depending on availability. And over like 3-4 weeks, we managed to finish the raid, which is the first something that I never did in Destiny 1. And like finishing that was a lot of fun. Doing it wasn't necessarily fun sometimes because of glitches. But like, yeah, it's 100% communication, and that's an experience I haven't had in a video game, particularly since I've stuck mostly to single player games. Like 2016 is really where I started to play more multiplayer games outside of League of Legends. So like also,
Destiny,
I started playing League of Legends.
Bungie deserves some kudos for like their game theory, like their game mechanics and game design. I just wish like I'm assuming Activision's more profit-oriented decision making, and it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, like you said, moving on, particularly because of Star Wars Battlefront, which is supposed to be the untouchable IP, and the fact that I don't think that game made nearly as much as they were expecting.
Yeah, it's been on sale on PSN, like 50% off sales, and it's only been up for a couple months.
So even if it didn't make money, it's been like the game to shit on all year. It was Pro Jared's #1 worst game of the year, right? Like it is the game to hate, right? Which is insane. Like this just like Battlefront 1 was not great. It was good though. I enjoyed it, and Battlefront 2 just got shit on. I think for me, like Destiny, kind of like the last. Sorry, what were you gonna say, Jess?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that Destiny 2 reminds me of a game that's fun in spite of itself for a lot of reasons, like, you know, like with the whole Eververse stuff and with all of like the obfuscation beyond experience, whatever else. It's like you have a core there that could be really fun, like, you know, like running the raids or doing, you know, the strikes together as a team could be really fun, but it's buried under all these other concerns that you have. And, you know, like games are expensive, I understand, but like it's sort of like, you know, this game could be a classic or it could be like a masterpiece or something, and it's got this other stuff that's keeping it back, kind of thing.
Absolutely. And like I think the last thing I want to say on this is just to point out like the glitches and the shit that's happened in this game. There was a solid 2-week period where there was a gun that could delete you in like in like 1 second. I remember
I do like the response to that though. Basically through Xur. Yeah. And turn it into like a special event weekend.
Yeah, I mean that was probably the best way to handle that. But like I remember playing that game and being like pretty interested to play Destiny 2 every night. And then I logged on one night and just played a match of PvP, and I was like, fuck everything about this game. Like I'm just completely done. Like the fact that this is a thing, like stuff like that happens in a game that is so prevalent, has so much funding, and really has no reason to have that thing happen. The game has honestly never recovered from that weekend in my mind, and I did enjoy it up until then, but after that I was just like, all right, cool, that's it. That's it for me.
Yeah, it's like we'll see what happens to Destiny 3 when that event inevitably comes out. So you mean
like Destiny 2.5 in a year, right?
No, I mean like really like real Destiny 3. Yeah.
If Destiny, so I feel like Destiny 2 still has the means to kind of correct itself the way that Destiny 1 did, where like the first major expansion, because we're still only at like Destiny 2.25. Destiny 2.5 is really kind of where I'm going to make a decision on it. Because that was like the Curse of Osiris was just a minor expansion, right? I'm hoping the next one is a more major kind of rehaul of the system.
Yeah.
And if Destiny 3 starts out on the same foot that Destiny 2 did, you just kind of have to go like, okay, Bungie, like you're better than like
you cut.
You've made good games in the past. You made like one of the most influential shooters ever made. Get your shit together. But we'll see. Anyways, so now onto Divinity Original Sin 2. Okay, so this game is wonderful. So there was another game, sorry, it came out last year, Tyranny. And Tyranny was by far my favorite, this style, like turn-based, pause-based, CRPG type thing. And Divinity Original Sin just if you like Neverwinter Nights, if you like Baldur's Gate, if you enjoy those games even slightly, this is by far the best version of that game that you can play. It is one of the best worlds. My biggest complaint about Divinity Original Sin 1 is that it was pretty small in scope, and also it was small in scope to what I could play, because the game also had a lot of issues with, there was a limited amount of experience that you could gain in the game. So if you just kind of messed up, like if you just did the quest incorrectly, then you just had a harder time beating the boss. So it was a lot of like restarting to try and kind of play through the story correctly, which is not how I want to play this kind of game. I want to play this kind of game I want to try and make a character that I enjoy, and if I do that incorrectly, then I need to restart. But I don't want to like be in a situation where I've played the story wrong, right? And in this game, there's no wrong way to play the game. There's no wrong way to play a battle. Hell, even in the battles, you can teleport an enemy out of the combat zone so that it's like, yeah, there's just not a problem anymore. I'll just deal with them later. Like, you can teleport them so far away that it's just like, yeah, they just don't have time to get back before the battle's done. Which is, it's so interesting. You can do stuff like lay oil on the ground, set it on fire to deal damage, make it start raining so the fire turns into smoke so that archers can't, and then like electrocute the smoke to damage people. It's such a playground in a game that has very little stuff that you can do each turn, right? Like, if you want to play an RPG playground, this is it. This is absolutely it. Even to the point of where when you start a new character in a game, when you start the game, you have a choice of creating your own character, or literally just picking one of the predetermined characters that will eventually become one of your party members to start as, right? So it's like, okay, I get to make my own person, or I get to kind of like fill the shoes of this person and play them in a way that I want to play them. Because if you don't pick that person as your main character, then you just kind of influence them and they influence you. It's a masterpiece. And then also it's co-op. It's co-op. You can play this game online co-op as an RPG, and it's just wonderful. This is, if I were to pick a game of the year, this would be mine, hands down. It's amazing. The scope of it, how it handles combat, discussions, everything. It's a wonderful, wonderful game. And also, kind of a random plug, we are going to be starting, I believe next week, a community-driven playthrough of this where I will be streaming, and you can jump in, jump out, and play as any of the other characters. I love this game. It's, yeah. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, so that's Divinity. So go play it. It's great. Hiveswap.
Yeah, so again, I can't be super unbiased about this. It's a point-and-click adventure set in the same world, but not necessarily involved in the expansive Homestuck kind of webcomic. So it was like crowdfunded a while ago, and it's finally come out. So I don't know. I'd be interested to know how good it is from someone who hasn't spent 1,000 years reading Homestuck. But for me as a fan, it was sort of everything I wanted. It was, it's a interesting point and click adventure that doesn't kind of obfuscate. Point and click adventures can be frustrating sometimes when you're trying to figure out what to do. So it's one that wants you to, gives you all the tools you need to solve the puzzle, and you're not, you left backtracking or wondering if you have the right thing or whatever. So it's a point and click adventure that has interesting stuff. And then the other thing is there is unique text for literally every combination of items used on every object in the entire game. And that text is updated if the object changes as well. So like it's such an interesting game in that, it can be as long or short as you want. If you have a particularly funny object, you can use it on everything and you'll get like a little witty response for it. But just the core actual game going through, it's fun. It's got like a bunch of unique animations. It feels like, part of the more modern point and click adventures, which I've really come to enjoy, like Kentucky Route Zero or The Journey Down or The Dream Machine. And they're point and click adventures that are not as concerned about having stumped puzzles, but more about having a fun way to deliver a narrative and flesh out a world by how you interact with it. It's sort of what the Telltale games used to be like Sam & Max kind of thing, before they turned into 100% narrative games without, with like the occasional like throw you a bone. But yeah, so Hiveswap, it's a really fun just kind of point and click adventure with lots of animation.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's definitely like a genre that I've never really jumped into. I can't think of the last point and click adventure game that I legitimately don't think I may have ever played one. So I've watched like mostly Walking from Day 9, but that's probably it. Like I've even steered clear of the like walking sim type stuff. Not steered clear, but just kind of like understood what kind of games that I enjoy.
Yeah.
Anyways, Hiveswap, Butterfly Soup.
Yeah, so this is the other very similar to Dream Daddy game kind of, but it's a visual novel. You don't really have a lot of choice in it. You're kind of just reading along. But it's a story that deals with very fleshed out characters in a very like interesting way. They're all very well written, very funny, and it's like close to the author's heart because she's an Asian Indian woman who has all Asian Indian friends, and and so she's like, oh, when she was making the game, it was, should I have all of the people in here be Indian or Asian, or like that doesn't make a lot of sense, even though that's literally what her lived experience was. It would be so strange for a game to have that, and went forward with it. And all the characters are really funny, and so it's got like romance angles and just like a huge heart. And it's like, it's a free game or pay what you want. And I think everyone should play it because this is what narrative games should be in my mind. This is what, something Persona, which I'm a little bit down on. This is what I like come back to, which is like all of the characters, get inside you, and you really want to know about them, and they're just all really well written, and the only reward of the game is getting to see more of them, kind of thing. And so it's 100% like one of my favorite games this year, and it's only like a couple hours, and it's like fantastic by any man I could throw at it. So
this background art also looks gorgeous to me. Like there was that first screen in this trailer where it was kind of like the baseball stadium, and I legitimately thought it was like anime characters kind of inserted into a real photograph.
Yeah, which is what it is. Yeah.
Is that what it is? Okay.
It is what that is. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I wasn't sure based on like the other stuff that happened, but that's
and it's so great that like just a person can just do this kind of shit now. Like you don't need to be like, you don't have to be Bungie and Activision to make a game. You can just be a girl in her apartment who's good at drawing and who can take photos and just putting these like crazy characters. This is that I might just play it tonight. It's something that's been on my list for a while, and I think it was, I didn't know how long it was, so knowing it's just a couple hours is like much. I can pull the trigger on it a lot easier.
Yeah,
but yeah, I definitely want to play this.
All right,
it's Lesbians at baseball camp, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like, and
Can't
it's
wait.
like it has like a romance that's so touching, and it has like all this representation, and it's just such a great game. Yeah.
Sweet. I'm all about that diversity, man.
Amazing.
It's my jam.
So moving on to a game that I guess is like diverse about shadows. Echo.
Echo. I'm all for it. Echo is a game that I definitely should play more of. I don't necessarily want to. I think the beginning of the game kind of soured me. It's legitimately like an hour of just walking, of holding up on the
this
stick.
right now in the I guess yeah the trailer is just that.
The trailer, yeah, it's not great to play at the beginning.
It's like 2.5 hours of exposition and then gameplay, right?
Yeah, but the gameplay. So when I was watching a dev play the game and he was explaining some things about it, like it's puzzle stealth, like, but like done with a twist. The premise is that there are these echoes of you're basically in a giant computer, and there are these like weird echoes of you, so they look exactly like you. And the computer has never met a human before, so has no idea what you are or what you can do, but it's watching you. So if you if you do a basic stealth game maneuver, like vaulting over a low wall or like a table, it'll like recognize that, and now the echoes that are the enemies can do that in the next cycle of the game. The game like pauses every five minutes and updates these echoes. So if you they'll do things like you'll purposely not do things like run, because then they can run and chase you. But you'll have to do things once you get later in the game, like there's a door you can't open, and the echoes can't open because they don't know how to open doors. But if you like open a door, the computer will learn, and then the echoes will update, and then they'll open the door while they search for you, and you can use that opportunity to walk through to get through the door. And like,
oh, that's cool.
There's just interesting game design decisions like that. It's just I need to like wait a little bit and then get back into it.
Yeah,
I feel like
in a save that's after all the walking of the beginning.
I feel like this is definitely the kind of game where I heard about the mechanics of it. I'm like, this is kind of like super hot level of just a gameplay design decision that is just so fundamental and so amazing, and you can create some really interesting scenarios of it. It just kind of sucks that it's bogged down by this opening. And that's the only reason why I haven't played it yet.
Just visually, I love the idea of the way the game looks, but of how like industrial repeated spaces in real life can have this kind of off-putting effect. And so like it looks kind of interesting, and those mechanics remind me of Metal Gear in terms of like how the AI, if you shoot everyone in the head, they'll get helmets, that kind of thing. But it just looks like an interesting game that I think I might like. But
yeah,
it's. I would suggest people, if you seem interested, wait for like a Steam sale or something. Or if you're like a burgeoning game designer, like check it out and see because this is a genre that's been done for years, but never anything like this. So it definitely changes the way you play the stealth game.
Very interesting. All right. So Total War Warhammer 2. So this game, like, honestly, this is not a game that came out this year. This is a game that came out last year and got an expansion that was $70.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So
well, you're saying because it's not really a sequel.
Yeah. So what happened is Total War Warhammer 1 came out a year ago, and then Total War Warhammer 2 is just a new campaign with new armies. So it's a whole new set of armies. All of the old armies are not present in this game, but there's an expansion that's coming out either soon or has come out that basically merges the two games. So it's an extra, like, I forget exactly how they did it. I don't know if it's paid, or I don't know if you have to do something to merge the two games. But if you own both of them, both sets of 4 armies, you'll be able to play across both campaigns. But like, this game, This game is exactly what I want from a Total War game. I don't like the Total War franchise. I love RTSs. I don't like this franchise. It's mostly been historic in the past, like Total War Medieval, Total War Rome, all that stuff. Everybody's loved them. Something about just throwing a dragon and magic spells in this. Like, this is literally exactly why just putting an IP in an already created game works. Right? Like, they took a game that has already been, like, developed and you know exactly what it is, and they just throw Warhammer on top of it, and it's significantly better than any other version of the Warhammer game. Also because there's actual reasons for that, right? Like, casting spells adds a new layer of depth to the game. Having aerial units adds a new layer, because when you're playing in medieval Rome, you can't necessarily have flying dragons, right? But in this, it adds that. It adds a new reason for archers to exist. It adds a new reason for all this stuff. And also just thematically, it really does fit into that same thing that we were talking about with Final Fantasy XIV and WoW, where just being in the world of Warhammer adds so much depth and interest for me. Like, this just looks badass. I would start a fight and just zoom in to see what was happening, because it just looks so cool. And it looks so, it's like recreating your own, you know, Battle of Minas Tirith fights, right, in Lord of the Rings. And it's so well done. And the one thing that this game did that the other one didn't is, in the previous campaign, it was literally just conquer the world. And this one, there's kind of a time limit to it. You have to kind of do a thing before any of the other armies do. Sure, there are some AI issues. Sure, you know, eventually, when there's always a point in every Warhammer or every Total War game that you get to where it's just like you're just auto battling everything, because it's going to take way longer for you to fight the battle, and you know, the AI can do it good enough so that you don't care about the losses. But if you enjoy grand scale RTS games and you enjoy a fantasy setting, regardless of if you know what the Warhammer universe is, this game is it's really, like, regardless of what the Total War series comes out with, I don't think I'm ever going to play it until they come out with a Total War Warhammer 3. Which is the exact same way I felt when they came out with the first one. It's just, this is by far, in my opinion, the best version of their game. And it's mostly just because of lore and world build and the world that they're in. And you might feel different about that if you're like a history buff or something like that. But you know, there's definitely, I'm not the only one that feels this way, but I'm definitely not there's definitely people that feel differently. But I love this game, and I've hated every other Total War game that's come out. That's just, it's weird. It's kind of shallow of me, I guess, but it's true. And it's amazing. It's just look at the stuff that's happening in this trailer. Like, it looks, it's the kind of thing that when I used to play Warhammer on the tabletop, like I just pictured happening in my head, and I love that, right? Like, it's everything I want out of playing Warhammer miniatures in a video game, and it's so cool. It's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, they just missed up. The missed opportunity was just calling Warhammer. That's the big
Total
one.
Warhammer.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It's true. They did mess it up. I do know a bunch of people that, like, I do know a significant amount of people that this is the first Total War game that they've bought because it's Warhammer, and there's something to be said about that. But anyways, moving on to Picross S.
Yeah, it's basically, for me, like, I don't have a lot to say about this game, but if you want 300 amazing puzzles, here you go. They're all really intelligent, and you'll have fun doing them.
Best game. Shut it down. No more games need to be made. Picross S.
So for me, it was the only reason I haven't played Picross S is because I played the shit out of the original Picross on the, I don't know if it's the original, but the one on the DS, and I played a shit.
No, the original was on the Game Boy. So.
Yeah, sorry, the Game Boy. So I played the one on the DS a lot, and I played the one on the 3DS a lot. But Sarah really likes puzzle games, and I definitely like, oh fuck, there's a Picross on the Switch. And still, to this day, it is the game that has the most hours on our Switch. It's like, oh, here, play this one. She's like, this game's amazing. I'm like, yes, Cross is just super dope. It's super dope. Oops.
And next up,
so
a not super dope game.
So this game like has. So this is the kind of game where it has no reason to be bad. Like legitimately everything about it is great, but everything extraneous to it and everything that was just injected into the game just made it horrible. Like the combat's still exactly the way it was in the
So we're not talking about Battlefront, we're talking about
Yes, sorry, I haven't said the game yet. Yeah, so Total Warhammer, Middle Earth, Shadow of War. I read the wrong line.
Not a very memorable title, anyways.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like this game, it's good. Like it is good. Like the combat's fun. The world, the story's all right. Like whatever. But like everything about it is good. But then it's just bogged down by needless repetitiveness, needless microtransactions, needless loot boxes, needless, like, to beat this game in a timely manner, you have to buy things. There were points where like I would just about to be ready to go to like do the next story mission, but then my castle was taken over, so I have to go and get that back because one of the requirements for the next story mission is to get the castle. Like it's just, this game is it's everything that's bad about loot boxes just made into but like, so at least with Battlefront 2 it's a multiplayer game, so like loot boxes have always fit into multiplayer games relatively fine. This is a single player game. Why the fuck, like why is this stuff in this game? There's absolutely no reason. You know, people have their story issues with it, but like those are absolutely nothing compared to what was pushed into this game for absolutely no reason. Shadow of War was my game of the year when it came out. I absolutely loved it. That game was amazing in my mind. And this game just takes everything that game did and just ignores it. And just makes a random thing that they thought people wanted or could monetize. Yeah.
It's games like this. I don't, for both the loot box and some of the narrative reasons, like it makes I like get angry, not because it's necessarily bad, but because like someone in a suit thought that he could trick us because he thinks gamers are stupid and like could just wring a lot more dollars out of us, and like it hurts like the medium, I think, and it's just insulting kind of. The gameplay seems to be there, but it's not. Yeah. It's the suits, man.
And this is also getting you down. This is also like surprisingly a game where I've always said that like traversal. I've said it in this podcast where one of the ways to make a game much better is traversal. This game makes traversal too easy. Like it's at any point, if you like vault over something or jump on something, if you just hit A, you get a speed boost. Like there's no like mechanical interestingness to the traversal of the world. It's just getting from point A to B is nearly instant. You don't have to care about any of the orcs you run into on the way. Like it's just this game is the worst way that you can implement a random set of tasks for a player to do. Like it's just, here's a set of things to do. None of them are difficult. Getting to them is not difficult. And it's not even like they're fun to do. They're just kind of a checkbox. Yeah. And that was everything that the first game did properly, but this game just doesn't do correctly. Like this is by far my most disappointing game of the year. I was so excited for this game, and it failed.
Can't confirm.
It failed in every respect in my mind. Like I wanted it to be so good, and it was good honestly for the first little bit, and then I kind of like figured out what the game was, and I just went, oh shit. I was so wrong.
Plus, in this trailer, one of the box quotes is you can play for hundreds of hours, and that immediately makes me be like, no, thank you.
And it's not even that you can play for hundreds of hours. It's you have to play for hundreds of hours. Oh, you want to get to the end? Screw you. Oh, it was
getting goddamn.
So disappointing. Anyways, moving on to a game that I didn't expect to be on the list, The Mummy Demastered.
The Mummy Demastered.
The hell?
Yeah.
What is this game?
So basically, it's WayForward, who they've done Shantae and like a bunch
Blood
of other.
Rain.
Blood Rain. They did the Thor DS game, which is actually like a really fun game. For whatever reason, they tend to turn out really good licensed games. But so the Mummy Demastered is essentially a Metroidvania, but it's in the same way that like I Am Setsuna is an RPG, but it's only like 14 or 15 hours, and you get that whole full RPG arc. The Mummy Demastered is a Metroidvania, but it's only like a 5 or 6 hour game, and it's got like, you know, just some neat power ups, some neat bosses. It's got really kicking music, and it's sort of just, I don't know if it's as good a game as I liked it, but it hit in this really light space where, you know, I didn't want a huge game. I just wanted a game where you get into it, you explore, you build power, you beat some cool bosses, and the game ends. That kind of thing. Because I've been playing a lot of fighting games or evolving games where there's like kind of no sense of improvement or completion except for your own kind of thing. So I just really like the game for that. It's got tight controls. It's got a fun thing where if you die, you just play as like a faceless marine going into like kill all of the weird creatures that happen during the Mummy. I wouldn't know because I haven't seen it, but
I mean, so that's also sorry.
Yeah. But anyway, so you just play as a faceless grunt. So when you die, your faceless grunt gets possessed by the mummy, and so you start off with like just shitty pistol, and you have to go kill yourself and get your stuff back. So it just adds like a level of tension, so that it makes like you want to get through the game a little carefully. You're not just blasting through areas because you know that if you die at a hard part, it's going to be even more of a pain to get yourself back, kind of thing.
I mean, like this. I guess this is like the first good thing to come out of the Mummy franchise since like 2004.
Yeah, for sure.
Rest in peace, Brendan Fraser. His career.
This was definitely a game that surprised me when I was seeing articles about it, because like I saw it on the Switch store, and I was just like, okay, like a tie-in to a movie that's going to be garbage, and it ended up being great. I was just like, okay, like great, good, entertaining, like worth what it is.
Yeah, I saw it on the PSN store, and I was like, I legitimately thought this was like a mistake.
Somebody,
it's an April Fool's joke.
Yeah, I thought it was like a joke, and I thought the title was typo. But then, I saw that it was done by WayForward, and I was like, oh, I'm interested. I haven't put too much time into it. It hits that classic beat.
Yep.
WayForward has those mechanical chops.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
they know how to make games, and they'll make them for anybody, I guess.
Yeah.
That's kind of.
They don't care what you want; they'll make it decent.
Yeah, as long as
make it dope.
Like Shantae is like their really passion project. So you can see that they, that's the games that they want to make, and they put everything into. And so like all these other little licensed games, they're just sort of. They use those things that they've learned from Shantae and just kind of like transplant them into it.
It's weird that they don't even get profitable like IPs though. They got Blood Rain.
Yeah,
Blood Rain. A game hasn't come out in like over a decade, and they got this Mummy.
They made Contra 4. Like if anyone was looking for a Contra sequel that was DS exclusive, that was a fun game, but yeah, it was a little weird.
It's crazy. Good for them. They've carved out a little niche for themselves.
So before we move to the next game, I'm just going to quickly run to the washroom. I need to, because it's been a while, but I will be right back in 30 seconds.
Well,
Take this time to go to a bathroom break as well if you want.
Okay.
do.
Well, I'll fill the time by talking about one of the games that. So Kingsway came out this year as well. It came out in June, a little bit earlier, but it was essentially a roguelike game that takes place within a mock Windows OS. So like as you're fighting enemies, they pop up in a little pop-up box, and if an enemy does a move, like little icicle pop-up box will happen. You have to close them to not get hit by it. So it's like a traditional roguelike, but it has this whole like your map is in a separate screen, your character is it's like separate pop-ups for all the aspects of your character. So basically, as the game continues, you just have to learn how to manage this UI, and that's the whole game, basically as a roguelike. So it's novel and it kind of doesn't wear out its welcome. I didn't find it too super difficult. You get a couple runs in, you get some neat kind of tactics, and you fight some weird bosses, and it kind of gets out of your way. But it was a fun time.
All right, so next game. Speaking of games that had no reason to be good, Assassin's Creed Origin. Okay, so I know, I'm probably gonna be the only one here, but this game absolutely blew me away. It's definitely on my top 5 of this year. It took everything that I loved about Assassin's Creed and removed everything that I didn't like. We all said that we thought that that's what Assassin's Creed 4 was. Like, it just kind of took out the bullshit and added in the good stuff.
Yeah, and it turns out Assassin's Creed 4 was just a pirate game.
Yeah, but and this game, like, it's the characters are interesting. The side quests are really well told. Well, I'm not gonna say they're well told. I don't really know that for sure, but I found them very interesting. The loot system was not forced in and silly. The villains and the way that they kind of abstracted away the kind of bullshit Assassin's Creed like future story versus the old story. Like, there's no Templars, there's no assassins. It's just your people trying to get Cleopatra back into power because the Romans are shit. I know you can say, like, okay, Egyptians are assassins and Romans are Templars then, but it's a nice way to kind of like breathe a new kind of interesting set piece into the story, I guess. I put way more time into this game than I thought I was. I'm like 40 or 50 hours in at this point, still just kind of playing around, doing fun stuff, enjoying the world, enjoying the side quests. The game also, it does, is kind of, I guess, like a little bit of a spoiler alert, but it does that kind of thing where it early on it explains to you what the world is, and then you get to a point and it's like, oh, there's a second whole world, and then you finish that and it goes, oh, there's a third whole part. And even when I first loaded the map at the beginning of the game, when I zoomed out, it was definitely like, oh, this is still going. Oh wow, this map is massive. Like, this map is huge. And I've continued to only be impressed with this game. There is definitely a caveat of, like, this is the most I feel like this is one of the most impressive AAA games that came out this year. And that like adding that AAA title to it is definitely something that needs to be there. Like, it's not going to blow you away in the same way that any of the, Butterfly Super Hive Swap games have. But it's definitely not what I expected from a multi-million-dollar Ubisoft game. Also, the support that Ubisoft has impressed me with how they supported games this year, especially with like Rainbow Six and this. It's very, very well done. This game is definitely in my top 5 of 2017. It's kind of that's all I kind of have to say about it.
That's cool.
I don't know if I have never liked an Assassin's Creed game. I don't know if I ever will, but Evan has convinced me to give it a try at some point.
This game is like, it's gorgeous as well. Like, I remember, like, there's a screenshot mechanic in the game, and I don't ever do that screenshot shit. But there was a point where I was on the Pyramid of Giza. It's in this trailer, and I was just surfing down the Pyramid of Giza, and you see these just like sand hills in front of you, like, oh wow, this feels
Journey.
It's true. I mean, it's true. Like, I have played Journey too, and it just felt this, like, and that's not the only time that this has happened in that game, right? Like, it's just there's so many gorgeous scenes and so many interesting things that I love this game. It impressed me in ways that I didn't expect. Other AAA games. Wolfenstein 2.
Did anyone else play this one?
I am waiting for it to come out on the Switch, which I'm very excited for to play.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that, but I haven't played it yet.
I loved the Wolfenstein New Order. I guess some of the subtitles. Old Blood. New Order, Old Blood. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So New Order. I really that game genuinely surprised me, particularly the storytelling. Yeah. This game does a lot of the same stuff. Like, the caliber is there. I think I think my expectations of it were a little higher than they needed to be. But it's definitely like more of the same. It talks, the way it treats its characters is always surprising to me, particularly because of the IP. And it does like, no spoil, yeah, to prevent spoiling, like, but also you can spoil a Wolfenstein game. Let's talk about that first.
It's so mad to think about, like, a Wolfenstein game character has spoilers or whatever else. Like, it's still like, you know, Wolfenstein, the first one, has been around for years, and it's still such an odd concept that a first-person shooter, you know, with such a storied name and a dumb history, has like this kind of narrative clout around it. I really love that.
Yeah, I definitely tried to play the first Wolfenstein New Order or whatever before this one came out, and it's definitely aged, and I think I'm just gonna skip to this one, but this game looks interesting.
Yeah, it's the gameplay, like the shooting in it isn't, there are some weird, I know a lot of people are talking about there's some weird like difficulty spikes in this game, and I think that's a result of some of the shooting mechanics, or rather maybe the shooting mechanics and the design of the levels aren't particularly perfect, but
that's pretty much what I've been hearing as well. But that again goes back to the point where in 2017 a Wolfenstein came out where the critiques are the gameplay and level design aren't that great, and the story is amazing, so you should do it anyways. Like, okay,
that's really weird.
Cool. 2017, Mario Rabbids and Wolfenstein with good story but not that great gameplay. What the fuck?
What is going on?
What is going on?
What a time to be alive.
So next we have
level.
Okay, so we have Mario Odyssey.
Yes.
It's Mario Odyssey. So
it's Jess, Mario Odyssey.
Just do your
thing. I'm over the moon about Mario Odyssey. No, it's just a game that I had the highest expectations for. I wanted a new full 3D Mario since basically Galaxy 2, so in 2009 or whatever, 10 that came out. So like, however many years, like a decade, I've been waiting for a new 3D Mario, and I had all these expectations, and it blew those out of the water. So it's just, it's inventive, it's hilarious at every possible turn. It's just throws new mechanics at you. Every single level has a mechanic that could essentially be its own game in any lesser hands. And it just, after the credits roll, there's an incredible amount of post-game things to do, of extra challenges, switching things up. The platforming system is like as expressive as a fighting game. You get to learn and know it, and it's the same kind of thing I was talking about with Flint Hook. But like at the start, you're like, you don't really know how to jump on your hat, how to do the long jumps, and by the end of it, you're not even touching the ground ever. You're doing like triple, ultra, quadruple long jumps, and you're executing these flawless maneuvers, and it just like it feels unlike anything else in any platformer. Like just the first time I ran around in a circle and he like Mario tilts his body, and it's just every aspect polished as imaginable, and the music is great, the bosses are fun. Like there's nothing that to not like about it. It's as much as everyone says like Portal is the best game ever, it's the most pure game ever kind of thing, I feel like Mario is that. Like it exists as a complete whole, head and shoulders above any of its nearest competitors in terms of just the wit and intelligence that goes into designing the levels and the mechanics.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've never really loved Mario games, to be honest, but I picked this one up, and like I have been, it is fun to like just see puzzles in a world, and I don't know why I didn't really love like Galaxy, but something, I don't know, Odyssey, and I don't even think people are saying this is the best Mario game, but I don't know, there's a special charm about it that I'm into right now. We'll see how I feel about it once I'm done, but
yeah,
it's pretty great.
Yeah, the complaint I have about it It's like it has a bit of the classic Nintendo slow start. It kind of front loads a lot of easy stuff and a lot of going through it, whatever. But for me, like every single of the collectibles is actually fun to find, and it never stops getting old, kind of thing. So, I just feel like there's so much there, and all of it is fun, and there's nothing I could have asked it to do more. So.
I feel like any complaints, this is the kind of game where any complaints kind of just get removed as you move along, and just are not really valid. Okay, so
they're trivial in the face of the whole thing.
Exactly.
If it's like NASA has a gimbal that they use to steer their rocket ships, and it's so smooth that if you blew this tiny marble up to the size of the Earth, there would still only be like a meter difference in height differences. And so it's like sort of like that, where Mario is so polished and smooth, only when you blow it up to be planet size do you see any of the kind of cracks in it. And it's
so for me, like, it's just a platformer, so no, I'm kidding. I do want to like attempt this game. I just haven't. I don't think I've ever enjoyed a Mario game, but I feel like this is definitely one that has enough kind of quirkiness and just kind of enough puzzle solving for me to really enjoy it.
And it's just like it's a feast for the eyes too. Like once you get to the Bowser's Kingdom, and it's like samurai themed with like all of these like really woodblock painting clouds that are just like so glorious to look at. And after you get the game, Peach goes and explores all the kingdoms, and she has a unique outfit for almost all the kingdoms, and they're like so fashion forward and that kind of stuff. And so like if I was a kid when this came out, my whole mind would have been blown up. Like, there's so much to it, and so much like it would have kept on, like I would have thought I would finish the game, and there kept on being more, and it would have just like crushed my tiny mind at that point. Yeah.
That's fair.
It's such a fantastic game. Yeah.
So moving on to a game that came out in 2011. Skyrim.
I'll be brief because every word that can possibly said multiple times. But basically, I tried to play it when it first came out, and the PS3 release was awful. There was memory leak issues, so if you're playing for longer than half an hour, slow down. And I just couldn't get into it, didn't want to play it. So I really bounced off of it. And so now the re-release on the Switch is the first time I've been playing it, and I like it. It's interesting. I can see some of the parallels between it and Breath of the Wild in terms of how the world is structured to pull you towards interesting things. And I really like how there's a ton of world building in terms of all the books can be read, and none of the characters are reliable narrators, so there's there's lots of intrigue. The issues with it, of course, it's an old game, but like there's like every action just feels kind of dumb and bad. Like the jumping is weird and bad, and the sword combat is weird and bad, and like it's fun to shoot a magic ball at somebody, but you do that like 9 billion times and it kind of loses its luster. But it's just sort of the perfect game to goof around in. So
the two things I want to comment on that is I feel like Skyrim is a very good like jumping off point to just talk about how the Switch can just reinvigorate old games. Like it's done that for Doom. It's done that. Hell, like if I look at my Switch collection, I have Axiom Verge and Cave Story Plus, and these are the first 2 times that I've actually played those games. Right? Like they came out. Disgaea 5 even, right? Like it's probably the best way to play all of these games, and that's consistently happening. I think the Super Meat Boy team said that they found that when they launched on Switch, it was as if they launched on launch day on PC, right? Like this, that's insane. So this is kind of it really speaks to how the Switch can affect the gaming industry and just old games in general, or old-ish.
Yeah, it's such a weird phenomenon. I can be like hyped out of my mind for a re-release of Dark Souls, or hyped out of my mind for the rumor of a re-release of Burnout Paradise on the Switch. Like there's any old game, is it coming to the Switch? I'm like, oh, it's coming to can't believe it. It's like, I've played this game multiple times. I've bought it multiple times. Why should I care? But it's just like transformed, you know, what it means to play a game. It's so easy to turn on and off, and it's like convenient and all this other stuff that no matter what game it is, I'm excited to play it. And so that like is enhanced even for new games. Like I can't wait for Wolfenstein to come out, because it's a new AAA shooter, and it's on the platform I'm on all the time anyway. So.
And then the other thing that it makes me want to say is all of those complaints that you have about Skyrim. So Skyrim, like every single Bethesda Elder Scrolls Fallout game for me, launches with problems. I'm willing to accept that, but they always end up being my favorite games for the next 2 or 3 years because of the modding community. So like with mods, the combat becomes better. With mods, the platform becomes better. With mods, the bugs become better. And I definitely like would
better bugs.
I definitely like want to stress that these kind of games, they're more of a platform for other developers to build onto in my mind. Hell, like Skywind is coming out, right? And it's just the entire Morrowind game built on the Skyrim engine. Like that's insane, right? And that is why these games are so special to me, and why also like Elder Scrolls 6, like if I hear a breath about that game, I'm just gonna like faint. I love this series, and it's the only reason why I haven't. This game is amazing as itself on the Switch, but the only reason I haven't picked it up on the Switch is because it's missing that modding community, that modding environment that I've grown to love. But it's still a wonderful game in and of itself. Easily.
Foos, row, duh.
Oh, yeah.
I don't play bad games, so I'm
That's okay.
Next up.
Not taking on Persona.
Next up. Let's see if
They're
let's
billions.
see if this game transition works. It did! Alright. We swapped from Twitch to YouTube successfully. Alright, they are billions. Andrew, go.
We've played. This game is weird. This is straight up. This is the first game that I played that is a early access game. I don't play like games that aren't finished. And for all intents and purposes, the mechanics of this game are finished. I guess they're just building the campaign, but like this game was a lot of fun. It's it's a great game in the fact that if you lose, it's pretty clear what you did wrong, and thankfully, like when you're going to lose, like you kind of lose pretty fast. So it's fast is relative.
Well, so it's not like most other RTSs where, like in something like StarCraft, if you lose, like any time that you actually say GG and quit the game, you lost way earlier than that, and you just may not have known it. In this game, like when you lose, you're kind of like, oh shit, and then it's you just kind of being a stubborn person and not quitting the game. Right? But it's definitely a lot more easy to see than in something in other RTSs.
It's for sure. And I don't know, I'm not even particularly like into steampunk. Zombies is like a subgenre I like, but not even particularly that much. But I don't know. I think the mechanics in it are really tight. There are so few options. It feels like there aren't too many combat units. There aren't too many like structure types. They're all pretty much the same, just upgraded. But at the same time, like there's so many things to keep track of. I think it's the perfect, like you're juggling one too many balls, so it doesn't feel like I give up, like this is too much. But it does. You never really feel like I have a handle on this. It's got like a perfect balance between the two.
And because of that, it always gives you that idea of, oh, if I just did X better, if you just handled one of those balls better, you would be significantly better off anywhere, which is exactly how an RTS should be in my mind.
Yeah.
Also, like this game, it's the first RTS that I know of that specifically designed itself to be a turtle first game. Like the whole game is built on turtling, and it's fun. Because historically in RTSs, turtling is probably the least fun way to play it.
Yep.
Right, and it did it well, and it nailed it.
Yeah. You don't win the game, like you just survive the last wave, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's. I'm definitely. I haven't survived the last wave yet, and I've only played on like the easiest difficulties. So I'm excited to like figure out my plan and strategy more.
It's a harder shit game. Just to like put it into perspective about how hard it is. If you have one zombie that kills a building, they infect everybody in that building. So I don't know what the exact number is, but if they kill a house, so one zombie kills a house, 4 zombies appear out of it. And usually all your houses are clumped together, and it takes 2 hits for a zombie to kill a house. And then just the seconds one gets in, it's just it kind of like mimics exactly how kind of a zombie apocalypse would go, quote unquote, where just like one problem happens and it extrapolates into just you're fucked, right? It's a really well done game. I love it.
Yeah, kudos to these guys.
Yeah.
Whoever the developers are, I can't. I don't know off the top of my head.
But. All right, so moving on to Gorogoa.
Gorogoa. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Whatever. Either way,
I have no idea, to be honest. It's like a really short game. It's weird to explain. Basically, you have 4 panels, and you sort of manipulate the panels either by going into these pictures and like moving the panel. It's hard to explain. Basically, it's a puzzle game where there are no instructions and no text, and it teaches you everything you need to know just by like the animations and the pictures, the images. And it's just like a masterclass in signposting. I don't know. It's like 2 hours. It started off as a mobile game, and I had no idea what happened. I have inklings. So like in this one, you move there's like in the trailer, like you move the bowl underneath the apple, and like the apple falls into this bowl, and that's completing the puzzle. So you manipulate these 4 panels, these 4 pictures, to complete the objective, and it's beautiful. It teaches you a little bit about how to design a game without text. And I don't know. I'm really excited to like go onto like Reddit and forums and see people's theories and stuff. But it's a masterclass in design. Did it come out as a mobile game? I think it did.
What did it come out?
Well, it came out this year, I think, on Steam first, but I'm not sure if it also came out on.
I think I play it on my Switch like a mobile game, so maybe I instinctually just thought it came out on mobile first or something.
Interesting.
It definitely should. And there's a weird dragonfish thing with weird colors. I don't know. There's an old man. But there's not much to say about it, like, except for that it's a really great puzzle game.
All right.
Study this game as well if you want to be a good designer.
Looks like
designer.
So I'm gonna take a second to talk about Path of Exile now. This game is I don't even know how to kind of start talking about this game.
It's an ARPG.
It's an ARPG. It is an ARPG, but it is one of the most deep. Sorry, our Twitch videos are not really translating that well onto stream. But this game, the amount of depth that I found in this is just mind-boggling. Also, the fact that this game is free and they came up with 2 just radical expansions in 2017. Like, they just fundamentally changed how the game works, and how the game plays. There's the way that the skills function is there, the way that the gems work and how you link them and how you can build these really interesting skill sets in there. The way that the Atlas works once you hit endgame, and how you can alter different maps that you run to have more monsters or have less monsters to kind of focus how you want to play the game. This game is just absolutely mind-boggling, and I think this game by far like I talk about how some games this year will be #1 of the year type thing, but Path of Exile definitely within 2017 has made it to one of my top games ever made. This game is wonderful. The designers understand what they wanted to do with this style of game, and they get it. And the amount of if you like theory crafting builds, if you like talking with the community and figuring out how things work, the Reddit community is active at all times. This game is it's amazing. Like just a small example of this build that I'm running right now. So like this is a pretty popular build right now, but I have an attack where if you hit somebody nearby you and there's another enemy also nearby, you copy your attack near to them up to 3 times. Also, if you attack at one point, then I attack 3 times, and then one of my attacks, it hits and like molten balls fly up and fall down, so that because of that, I've specifically using items that whenever any projectiles I use hit, I gain a certain amount of health. Like there's just so much stuff in there. And then when you get to start thinking about the passive tree, maybe I can find it in this thing where I show it. But the passive tree is just this ludicrously large set of skills, kind of along the lines of the sphere grid from Final Fantasy X. So you can build these like insanely interesting builds that differ, even though you're using the same active skills, they differ based on the passives that you're using, and the passives change so much about everything. Also, this is all gameplay. I have not paid a single bit of attention to the story, and I've heard that the story is amazing as well. So this is the skill tree that you're looking at right now. It's just ludicrously large. You start at different places based on which raid you're using, based on which class you're using. I just can't give this game enough praise. The one thing that I do have a complaint about, it sucks in the beginning. This game is really difficult to play when you start, because in the beginning it's very much just a very classic ARPG. You don't get to see all the crazy build stuff that's going on. You don't get to see all the crazy passive tree combinations that you can make. So if you do start playing this game, just understand the first act does suck. It's bad. Act 2, you start getting to see everything that makes this game so special. And that's kind of, I think, all I have to say. Just if you're interested in this game, if you like ARPGs, stop playing Diablo. It sucks. It's so bad in comparison. Like I don't even know how to explain it. Like this game is just the best ARPG on the market. It's tough to get into, but once you do, like it didn't take me that long to get into it either. I just watched a couple YouTube videos and figured out how the stats work. But it's a wonderful, wonderful game.
Sweet.
Yeah.
We are brushing up on the 3-hour mark. We
are, but we're almost done. We got we got like 2 or 3 games left. We're mostly getting into the games that like kind of didn't come out this year, or like did but were weird. So like the next game, we got some Rainbow Six Siege.
So this game didn't come out this year.
It did not. Or
I should say 2017. It's 2018 now.
But this is kind of the year that it did well. Like this is the year that
for us at least. I know the community has been loving it. I think since back half of season 1.
Yeah. So this is kind of, I guess, more of this is when DPAL figured it out.
This has become DPAL's sort of de facto game.
Yeah. So Andrew, I'll let you talk about this a bit more because you're a little.
Sure. It's just really fun to play. Like it's the first competitive first person shooter I've really come to enjoy. Like I liked Overwatch. But the way that the characters work, the way that it's not even about shooting, it's about information really. And the same feeling I got, I guess similar to Destiny 2, where I thought the raid was all about communication and like that was new to me. Rainbow Six is very similar. I really only play well when I'm playing with friends, and it's not even necessarily like they're carrying me. It's like, oh, I just have a lot more information at my disposal. Like we're using the abilities like they're designed to be, which is by talking. So yeah, I'm excited to see what year 3 has to offer. and we'll definitely be playing this for a while.
Yeah, this is definitely kind of one of those examples of Ubisoft kind of figuring out how to do a game. Like, they've launched it a while back, and they just kind of finally figured out how they should be launching patches and stuff like that. Even as a kind of more casual shooter player, which both Andrew and I are, as he already said, like I like shooters, but I don't usually like these kind of more hardcore CS:GO, like one shot you're dead type things. I'm more into the casual run and gun type stuff, but I still enjoyed this quite a bit. I'm definitely not going to get into it as much as the other guys in terms of like call outs and stuff like that, but even though I have not done that, I'm still performing well in the game, which has surprised me. Just general fundamental shooter stuff has helped significantly. Just being able to, quick scope a guy and kill them and move on, even though I don't necessarily know where I am in the building or what's going on. Just being able to do that is good. Yeah, this game surprised me. I definitely thought I would hate it a lot more than I did. Yeah, so moving on to probably the weirdest game of the year, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. So have you guys played this at all?
I have not played 1 second. Probably somewhere in 70 hours of Awful Squad, the Polygon streaming of PlayerUnknown's. And so, like, I feel like I understand the game a little, like pure watchability, the drama of every mission, the way that the custom games work with the zombies and all this other stuff. It got me into like kind of watching streaming. I was never like a huge fan of watching kind of the longer form streams, but this game is just like so much fun to watch. And it's like, because it's immediately clear what the priority is and what the situation is and how everyone's doing. That it's just kind of a blast for me to be a spectator of it, even though I haven't played any of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. This game also surprised me in the same ways that Rainbow Six did, where it was a little bit more of a hardcore shooter than I expected. I'd like. But the amount of just shenanigans that happen in this game, the crazy things that go wrong, even the little things like the physics engine being so bad, right? Just like make this game so special in small ways. And it finally launched. Sure, it's not a good Xbox game at this point. Like, there's glitches galore, but this is I think, regardless of if you like this game, because it's ended up on a couple YouTubers and journalists like top 10 worst games of the year. Regardless of if you like this game, you can't deny that this is going to change the face of shooter. Like, this is the next Call of Duty 4, right? Like, every game is going to try and mimic PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds the same way.
Battle Royale mode.
Yeah, every game is going to try and mimic the Battle Royale the same way that every game after 2004 tried to mimic Modern Warfare 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a game that recently announced a Battle Royale mode. Not Fortnite, but what was it?
And even so, that's the other like kind of. Did Paladins?
Paladins, that's what it was.
Paladins,
They did, really.
Yeah, I have no idea how that's gonna work out.
It's interesting too, because like Fortnite's been doing really well, and like literally the only thing that Fortnite has over PUBG is Fortnite is just a game that's developed by a.
Oh, it's got some stuff. I played it. It's a little bit different in that, it has some more crafting in it. It's got a little bit more like the flow of the game is a little bit different.
So,
it's also
yeah,
which PlayerUnknown's kind of isn't.
So I feel like most of that comes down to just being developed by a studio that has more funding and has more like history with developing games. Like, they're just more experienced.
Yeah.
Right? Because PUBG's like one dude who hired most of his development team from Korea. Right? Like, just kind of just like he consulted it from just, outsourcing. And outsourced it. That's the word I wanted to use. So it's just like PUBG is the original one, kind of out of nowhere, and then Fortnite is the new one that's
because it's not. It has PUBG is not like out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's true. It's not out of nowhere. Yeah,
because it had like there was a King of the Kill, and there like this sort of game of the battle royale game like, you know, there was Minecraft mods and stuff like this. It's not necessarily out of nowhere, but it certainly is the first breakaway hit kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see, like, yeah, I guess that's just my opinion of PUBG. Regardless of if you like it, it's going to be a game that changes the face of shooters in the future.
Yeah.
Get ready to see a lot more of them.
Yeah. So, Warframe.
Yes, Warframe. So a lot of the stuff you're kind of also Warframe. But basically this year it got two kind of really massive expansions that kind of reshaped the game a little bit. But so, you know, Warframe, it's essentially, you know, a game nominally about space ninjas with crazy powers shooting enemies. But the real core of Warframe is the game is about accumulating power. And it's essentially, you can go about doing that in any of like a number of different ways, PvP, PvE. But so they just added like an open world zone that it's kind of like Destiny. So there's like, you have patrols and stuff to do on it. But it's, you know, it's a game that came out in 2013 and the developer has just kept on adding more and more stuff. Now, whenever there's a new patch, it involves sort of like Final Fantasy, it involves like a full set of story missions with cutscenes and unique bosses, and you know, it'll involve raids, and they'll add like a new mode, and you know, and it's also a free-to-play game that's generous. You know, it's probably best if you put $10 or $15 in it, because there's like some stuff where you have to unlock slots so you can hold more weapons. But for the most part, it, you know, the buying money does speed up stuff, but it's doable without, and it doesn't get any worse. Like, you know, weapons always take 12 hours to build, regardless of what type of weapon it is or how powerful it is, that kind of thing, right? So you can speed that up, or you can, you know, you can be done for the day and come back tomorrow. But so it's just a game that there's literally no upper ceiling on the amount of power that you can accrue. They don't have to worry about balancing it because most of it is PvE. So it's just about, you know, once you get in, like, and that's the thing, the same with Path of Exile, is like the beginning of kind of pedestrian, it's kind of fun to shoot stuff, but where it really shines is when you get into the higher level and you're essentially like 4 gods who are dropped down and you're killing like waves and waves on enemies, and there's like, you know, tons of special effects going, and you can just like, you know, you're just murdering guys, and like a huge boss will drop in and you have to like all, you know, do his mechanic or type of thing, and it feels and looks like an entirely different game than the one you start out as. And so, yeah, a lot of the same stuff that applies to Path of Exile applies to Warframe, except for it's a, you know, a third-person shooter. And for me, it's really what like the promise of Destiny should have been, kind of. I don't know. It's weird because it's a little bit janky, but it's like, you know, a huge game, and you get out of it what you want to put into it. If you just want to drop in and have some fun fights, there's that. But if you really want to get and learn how you know, there's like a bunch of different upgrade systems and whatever else, but if you want to get into those, you can build a character who is like 100% unique, 100% your own, and who just like feels like a badass when you go into the lower missions. And just like, you know, my character is set up right now, essentially anything that's under level 15 that gets near me just instantly dies. And so, like, you know, I'll have some fun sometimes like dropping in lower missions, and there'll be lower missions where it's like defend a you know, like a certain spot on the board, and I'll just like stand on top of it, and you'll just watch just waves and waves of enemies like jump in and fall and die, and it's just like, you know, it's like a power trip like nothing else. And it's, you know, it's like the development team has been basically, the way they do it is the new expansion always, you know, has new weapons and a new Warframe and new, you know, all the stuff I mentioned earlier, and they also make it easier to get through all the stuff that came before it, sort of things. So it's structured like an MMO, almost free to play. So it's just sort of like a really unique thing, and having like a big open world zone, just like kind of throwing that in was such a surprise for an expansion pack. So
interesting. This has always been a game that I've wanted to get into, but this was exactly the same with Path of Exile for me, where like I played the first couple missions and I was like, okay, cool. Something else came out. I kind of got distracted. Same with Path of Exile. I like got halfway through the first act, you know, kind of got a little bored, moved on to something else. But I definitely kind of want to make a jump into this game the same way I made a jump into Path of Exile last year.
Yeah.
So We have. I guess yeah. We have this. We have this one. Let's move on to this one. Thumper.
Oh no, those are the ones I don't need to talk about. I don't know.
Okay. Cool.
Because they came out last year.
Okay. Well, in that case,
that's it. Yeah.
That's it. We did our year in review. That was fun. That was sick. That was great. I learned a lot about games that I had not even slightly heard about or played this year. Now I have a new shit ton of games that I want to play. So thanks, guys.
Thankfully, all the ones that I picked up are 2 hours long.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Butterfly soup. It's crazy. First of all, I love the spread that we had. Particularly Jess, like I love how you find these random indie games.
Yeah.
Like Hive Swap, which I never would have heard about otherwise. But like 2017, like we had a couple of bad years for video games in the last decade. When everything was gray, it was a year. What was it? 2007.
Oh yeah, the next gen brown and gray. Yeah.
But like this year has been. I think we'll be. I genuinely think this will be. We'll talk about like what year was it in the SNES era where like a crazy amount of I don't know. Anyways, like I think this year was.
This year is starting off really good too. We have Monster Hunter coming out like next week or something like that. This year, I'm excited. I'm excited. One thing I noticed about my spread is that like I play a lot of games early on in the year and the end of the year. Like I had nothing from like March till August. Like that was just like a dead zone where I just kind of I guess played PoE. This is a fun year though. This is a fun year. Yep. I do want to do something for next year where I actually write down like I have an Excel sheet that is alive throughout the entire year where I say every single game that I started and every single game that I finished.
It'll be a short list for that second one.
It's going to be super short, yeah. I definitely don't finish many games. But the games that I do finish, you know, usually shorter or says something about the game. But I do kind of want to do that because it makes stuff like this a lot easier. And also it kind of speaks to the previous year a little bit, I guess. I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do we want to have everyone pick a game, your own game of the year, or are we just going to...
Yeah, that'd be a good way to end it, I think.
I think that'd be great. I just gotta look through the list for a second.
Then I guess shout outs to for me Nier Automata, Fire Emblem Heroes, Uncharted Lost Legacy, like even shout out to Persona 5. But honestly, Pyre is probably
Really?
If I had to pick one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough, but
those are some cool games, yeah. For my list, it would be Super Mario Odyssey. I think just because of the amount of enjoyment I got at the top. But Night in the Woods, Flint Hook, Butterfly Soup, and I think those are and so like if I had to really, I think it would have to be Butterfly Soup as my game of the year.
Interesting.
Just because no other game like kind of like reached in and like hit all the notes that I wanted out of it and just was like surprising and heartfelt and that's what I want more out of games kind of thing.
Yep. So for me, I have to say, like, For Honor, as much as I enjoyed it during it, like, when it came out, I thought it was going to be Game of the Year material, but it's kind of failed me since then. Breath of the Wild, definitely a game that just blew me away in pretty much every way I could expect. Mario Rabbids, fuck. I'm surprised. Honestly, I did not play the XCOM 2 expansion this year, so I feel like that would kind of be overtaken by that, to be honest. But because I didn't play that, Mario Rabbids, Divinity Original Sin 2, if I were to pick a game that came out this year, that is my game of the year, by far that one. Assassin's Creed Origins honestly makes it the list. It's so well done, and a game that if I could just say everybody should play, Path of Exile. Holy shit! I can't talk about the game more. It does make its way to my top 5, probably ever made. So, but it didn't come out this year, so you know what I mean. Yeah. What do you guys want to like? I don't know. I guess that's
sign it off.
That's that. So thanks for watching, everybody. Really appreciate it. It's been a great year. Hopefully we have a next great year. In the meantime, I might play some PoE tonight on stream, but worst case Tuesday we'll be back with some Pew Pew Die. Thursday hopefully I'll be able to stream again, and Andrew and I will be doing something else, and then next Sunday hopefully we'll start our Divinity Original Sin 2 playthrough. But yeah, thanks for watching. This will be on YouTube soon, and peace. Bye.
To close it.
The Popo thing is water, baby, but this motherfucking Grey Goose, baby.